action like 3 or 4 times. We're jumping through this hoop. And we understand that the HR manual, there's a portion in there that needs to change. And that's why you're stopping the bond for the solid waste and that, what is it, water and sewer that got it, right? So today I'm asking Michelle, that which part of that HR are you stopping this issue with to pay those solid waste workers?
Maybe I can remind her.
And that's why I'm trying to change that. We need to change that in the HR manual today in order to make this work. Because this is the 3rd time it's coming back on this floor when this council passed that we increase those drivers and that the current rate would be at a rate equivalent to all hook drivers are drivers. And solid waste needs those drivers and those employees that are there. And if it's the HR manual that's stopping it, I'm gonna make that motion to change that portion of it so that today will be the last day we'll be dealing with this issue.
And what she's bringing up is, remember that discussion we had about the manual and changing salaries? First, we took action to, whenever we amended the personnel policy and procedure, and we had assumed that it would go back to all employees, but it hadn't, right? So then we had a discussion then. And then the next action we took was that the job descriptions, when they're revised, then the salaries would be changed then. But that didn't specifically apply to current employees. And then we thought we took that action, but that was in the working session, and we have not brought the personnel policy and procedure manual back yet. So that's what she's referring to. So I think she just wants you to expound and explain. You can just explain what you explained to me.
Okay, for the record, my name is Michelle Barber. I'm the Human Resource Director. Ordinance 1822 states that any and all job revisions on job descriptions are for new employees only. The issue came up in regards to how current employees can get the salaries after the revision is done and the salaries changed. In the policy 1822, this ordinance is for new employees only. It came up 3 times. Solid Waste came forward and brought it in, explained to her if she got it through to have them amend the ordinance stating that the change should say to include current employees. She brought it forward, it didn't happen. It went to Kyle, you guys put it into your draft, so it's currently in your draft. This ordinance was passed where it just says new, it doesn't say current.
Okay, so that portion of it today on ordinance 1822, my motion is to change and include the language to include current employees today. And that language be in there, so this would be the last time this body deals with this issue. Because like she said, we did it 3 times, and still that loophole is there. And the working session, we can't be waiting. Our employees should not be waiting, and it's not fair. So we did put the equivalent pay for new employees, but today my motion is to include on ordinance 1822 that we include current employees. That's my motion.
I got a motion. Is that still your second, Councilman Gibbons?
Yes, Chairman, and I want to say a couple words on that. I knew when that had happened, it was unfair, and we've got a lot of good employees out there, some trained employees, and what we seek from our new employees, these employees have these credentials already. And I will second that. Let's roll the vote.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rodania?
I believe last council we had the same discussion, and there was clarification that it did include current employees. However, that wasn't the case. So therefore, I did request action that a report be compiled of those employees who are not current employees who are not at those salary scales. So that was my motion, was for HR and the chief of staff to work together to develop that report and to bring it back to council so we can see what programs are not in compliance with the salary scale. So with that, I still would like to see that happen as well. Mhm.
Thank you. I have you down, Councilwoman Whitehurst. Councilman Greenwald?
Does that take care of the issue? That wording that she just said, or do you need anything in there that's more specific as to
This
permanent
ordinance
current
would
ones,
do it.
temporary permanent ones?
If you have it in there where the revision to a job description is to include current and new employees, it'll cover everybody.
Okay.
But the current isn't in there. Right now, your ordinance only reads new.
And also we have to take an effect, I guess, the director and the chief of staff is their budgets too. I mean, that always comes into play as well too, right? If we have
That's
the money.
correct. And what Jennifer Berrygo had put in there was, when she sent it, was that this is only based on available funding within the program.
Okay, but this funding that we're talking about, this council passed the bond for them. So they do have the funding. So that should not be the issue.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitehurst, and then Councilwoman Sears.
This ordinance that I'm going to read includes what the motion says, what her motion says. So I think we should read the ordinance first before we just pass the motion, because the ordinance would amend the current personnel policy and procedure.
Okay, Councilwoman Sears? And then I'll come back and we'll read that ordinance.
Yeah, I know that we're currently working on the amendments to the salary scale, and it is gonna come back. Because if you're gonna just pass it for one entity, you got other programs out there that are in the same situation. That's why we're meeting Thursday. We're gonna look at these, I don't know if it's that.
Financial management.
Okay, well, we were supposed to be meeting on the revisions to the personnel manual, and it includes the salary scale. But, you know, what's being proposed for the future is that one salary scale doesn't fit all. Because you have construction workers, you got people who have specialties in their jobs, and those need to be separated salary scales. So we need to look at that to make it fair to all these people that are in construction, that do hazardous work, you know, so medical. We need to change that, because right now this is what we keep running into with that one salary scale. We need to look at construction. We need to separate that with people with expertise in different areas. So that is coming, and I hope we do set up a meeting soon so we can iron this out. Otherwise, we are going to have other programs coming forward.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitehurst?
Also, this ordinance includes all programs, not just solid waste. Because we do have the solid waste ordinance as well, but the attorney made this ordinance to cover all programs and all existing and new employees. So if you want me to read it, do you need to retract your motion?
You could just read it and then,
My motion is to insert that language in 1822, so you could read it, and at that point where it needs to be inserted, just insert it in there.
That's what this ordinance would do, is to amend 1822. But I'll read it. Ordinance of the Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe amending Ordinance 1822, Section 23-2, in order to add provisions for pay increases due to revisions in job descriptions. Whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe adopted its constitution and bylaws by referendum vote on December 14, 1935, in accordance with Section 16 of the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934. And under Article 3 of the Constitution, the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council is the governing body of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And whereas Article 4, Section 1F of the Constitution of the Oglala Sioux Tribe authorizes the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council to manage all economic affairs and enterprises of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And Article 4, Section 1W authorizes the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council to adopt laws protecting and promoting the health and general welfare of the Oglala Sioux Tribe and its membership. And whereas Article 4, Section 1T of the Constitution gives the Tribal Council the power to delegate its enumerated powers to subordinate boards or officers, reserving the right to review their actions taken by virtue of such delegated power. And whereas the Finance Committee is a standing committee of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council and has been delegated the power to oversee all budgetary and financial matters on behalf of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. Whereas the Tribal Council enacted Ordinance number 18-22, Personnel Policy and Procedure Manual, which included Chapter 23, Wage and Salary, Section 23-2, Wages and Salary Limitations. And whereas Section 23-2A2 provides that nothing in this manual or Ordinance 1722 is intended to create immediate eligibility for raises to the current salaries of current employees of the tribe. And whereas Section 23-2B provides that newly hired employees shall be governed by the amended Oglala Sioux Tribe salary scale enacted by Ordinance 1722 with certain limitations. And whereas this resulted in situations where existing and new employees with the same position in the same department may be paid at different rates. And whereas I don't remember the date. The Finance Committee met and approved an amendment to Ordinance number 1822 in order to add a provision for pay grade changes due to revisions in job descriptions and ensuring that this revision applies to both existing and new employees to submit to the Tribal Council for approval. And whereas the Tribal Council agrees with the foregoing recommendations of the Finance Committee and has determined that it is in the best interest of the tribe and its employees to amend Ordinance number 18-22, Section 23-2 in order to add a provision for pay increases due to revisions in job descriptions that applies to both existing and new employees. Now therefore be it ordained that the Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe hereby amends Ordinance number 18-22, Section 23-2 to add subsection H as follows. H. Pay increases due to revisions in job descriptions. When a job description is revised and properly approved and the change to the job description results in a pay grade change, then the pay grade change will apply to both existing and new employees subject to the program budget and availability of funds. 1. Sufficient funding must be available for the pay grade change. 2. No revision of a job description that results in pay grade change will allow for retroactive pay. And 3. Any pay rate change pursuant to this subsection will only go into effect when the PAN is processed and no earlier. Be it further ordained that it is the intent that a program director may seek to utilize this subsection H immediately for current employees and are not limited to only future changes, provided that all requirements are met and retroactive pay is not permitted. Be it further ordained that this ordinance shall become effective immediately and shall supersede, repeal, and replace all prior inconsistent laws of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. Certification.
Okay, so Cora, and to our HR director, with this new ordinance that you're bringing forward, that included the language that I'm requesting.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be no problem after today with those programs, right? Okay, motion to move it with the changes.
Second.
Okay, so you withdraw your initial motion?
Yeah, my
Okay,
language
'cause-
is in this new ordinance that she read.
Okay, so then I got a motion by Councilwoman Whitehorse, second by Councilman Goodcrow for this ordinance.
Lydia motion, by second. Lydia motion.
Question.
Okay. Councilman Apple.
Okay, Michelle, my former social nutrition cooks were supposed to get a raise. And one was even gonna quit because it didn't happen. And now he stayed because he said he was gonna get a raise and it still didn't happen. So my question to you is, why is that going on?
That's a program issue. The chief of staff is here, so if you want to ask for that, she'll answer it. Those current raises for those employees is being added to the 2020 budget. So all of the social nutrition cooks will be receiving a raise to the 1171. The current director is making that change within her budget.
Thank you, Councilwoman Berdania.
Don't come from the budget.
I believe Councilwoman Sears had her hand up before me, so do you want to go and then I'll go?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so Cora, on that part of it, whenever they do the current employees are putting in for that increase, and they're not happy with that part, you know, the step increase or whatever, is there a cap on that, on how far they can go, or do they have to go by a certain increase, the step or whatever?
It depends on their job description. The pay, where they are on the grade and step depends on where they are, what requirements and what special licenses or what education is required for those positions. And those are all explained in the back sheet of 1722. If you have a special license, you are allowed to get an increase.
So
Or
is
to
there?
set the salary at an
Yeah,
increase rate.
I understand that, and I know that there's a lot of people that are truck drivers, or there's something, and then you have a cap on a certain part, and some's, you know, been there, but you can't go to another limit, so that's, you only can go so far. That's what, we hope it doesn't interfere with that.
I don't know of a cap. No. That hasn't been in there. There never was. Whenever we set, all we set was minimum standards. So there's a minimum, but depending on what's required of their job, then they go up on the salary scale. But it depends on what's in their job description and what's required of them. The only thing, we didn't set a cap, the only thing that we set was a minimum standard. And those were set by Davis-Bacon laws and everything.
Councilman Gibbons.
Thank you, Sheriff. You know, this is a prime example of we've got other things out there like the personnel policy. We've got the family code out there. We need to complete these items because it's been unfair, and children are out there with CPS needing these policies to be done. We need to get the policies done. Let's roll the vote. Sheriff.
Councilwoman Berdania.
So I do have a question for HR, because according to this ordinance, it stipulates that revisions, grade change due to revisions in the job description. So that means all current employees have to have their job descriptions changed to meet that pay increase. And so are you guys equipped to handle all of those changes that need to happen so that they can get their increase if there's monies available?
Okay, each program director, that is their responsibility. If they're gonna revise their job descriptions, there's steps in there. And in those steps, it says to do these revisions, that this is what they come forward with. So when they revise a current job description at a higher salary, then this new ordinance that you guys are passing today will affect current employees. But it's up to each director to do so.
Councilwoman
And we
White.
know that it's possible because they did it for their own salaries, so they can do it for their employees.
Okay, got a motion and a second on the floor. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross,
Yes.
Jackie Sears,
Uh-huh.
Vincent Tullett,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes,
Valentina Merdanian, Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chauncey Wilson, Philip Goodcrow,
No.
Randy Laisbeth,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald, Robin Tapio.
Yes.
15 yes, unanimous, motion carried. Next item. Councilwoman Whitehorse.
Thank you.
the last one, that last item F is covered by E, so we don't have to deal with item F. And the last thing I have is that 2/3 bond issue. If you want to deal with that, we can. Okay. I shall read it then. An ordinance authorizing the issuance by the Oglala Sioux Tribe of its essential governmental functions, sales tax revenue bonds, tax exempt series 2019A, and taxable series 2019B in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $3,600,000. A copy was passed out to everybody, and all the changes from the attorney are marked in there. So I'll read it with the changes. Whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation is organized under the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, 25 U.S.C. subsection 5101. And whereas by virtue of the tribe's sovereign rights as an Indian tribe, and pursuant to the act the tribe adopted on December 14, 1935, the Constitution and bylaws of the Oglala Sioux Tribe of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, which Constitution was approved by the Secretary of the Interior on January 15, 1936, and was subsequently amended on December 24, 1969, December 3, 1985, and July 11, 1997, and December 18, 2008. And whereas, pursuant to Article 3, Section 1 of the Tribal Constitution, the legislative powers of the tribe have been vested in the Council of the tribe. And whereas pursuant to Article 4, Section 1G of the Tribal Constitution, the Tribal Council is authorized to appropriate for public purposes of the tribe any available funds, and whereas the tribe requires A, certain equipment relating to its solid waste, water and sewer services, and B, funds to pay certain operational expenses of the tribe. And whereas to fund the costs of A, the equipment, it is necessary that the tribe issue its essential government function sales tax revenue bonds, tax exempt series 2019A, and B, the operational expenses, it is necessary that the tribe issue its essential government function sales tax revenue bonds, taxable series 2019B, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $3,600,000 pursuant to a bond declaration of the tribe, the execution of which bond declaration is authorized herein. And whereas the tribe has engaged P.A. Davidson and Company to place the bonds and has agreed to pay certain fees to the placement agent in connection with the placement of the bonds. And whereas the tribe and its tribal council will need to assist the placement agent and Hutak Rock LLP in the preparation of the private placement memorandum, which will describe the terms and conditions on which the bonds will be issued and other material matters relating thereto. And whereas the issuance of the bonds will require the tribe to execute several documents, including the bonds, bond declaration, a trust agreement between the tribe and BOKF, National Association as trustee, bond registrar and paying agent, and other certificates and documents related to the issuance of bonds, as well as to distribute the private placement memorandum, each of which will be presented to the president and the treasurer or anyone authorized to act on behalf of such tribal officials for comment and approval prior to the closing of the bonds. And whereas in order to make bonds enforceable obligations of the tribe will be required to waive its sovereign immunity. To that end, the bond documents will include a limited waiver of the tribe's sovereign immunity concerning disputes with respect to the transactions contemplated by the board documents. C should be B. A waiver of the doctrines of exhaustion of the tribal remedies and claims of comity. D should be C, consent to arbitration. E should be D, consent to jurisdiction in federal courts located in South Dakota. And F should be E, consent to the law of South Dakota as a law governing the bond documents. All as set forth in this authorizing ordinance and in the bond documents. And whereas the tribe currently has outstanding its A essential function revenue and refunding bond series 2012, issued pursuant to ordinance number 12-12 adopted on August 28, 2012. B essential function revenue bonds taxable series 2014A and C essential function revenue bonds taxable series 2014B, both of which series 2014A bonds and series 2014B bonds were issued pursuant to ordinance number 14-04 adopted on April 8, 2014, and D sales tax revenue bonds taxable series 2018C issued pursuant to ordinance number 18-25 adopted August 16, 2018. And whereas pursuant to the prior sales tax ordinance, the outstanding sales tax bonds are secured by a lien and pledge of available tribal sales tax revenues. And whereas the tribe intends to issue the bonds on a parity with the outstanding sales tax bonds by securing the bonds with the pledge of the pledged sales tax revenue. And whereas to secure the bonds by a pledge of the pledged sales tax revenues, the tribe must satisfy the requirements of the prior sales tax ordinance regarding the issuance of the additional bonds secured by a parity pledge of the pledged sales tax revenues. And whereas the bonds will be limited obligations of the tribe secured solely by the pledged sales tax revenues and no other assets of the tribe, including the tribe's taxing power, will be available to the holders of the bonds for the repayment of the bonds. And now therefore be it resolved that the tribal council of the Oglala Sioux tribe that the issuance, sale, and delivery of the bonds are in the best interest of the tribe and are hereby approved and authorized. And be it further resolved that the tribal council hereby delegates each tribal representative the authority to approve the bond documents prior to the closing of the bonds. And be it further resolved that the tribal representative is hereby authorized, A, to approve the final terms and provisions relating to the bonds, B, to execute and deliver the bond documents in the name of and on behalf of the tribe, with such modifications or changes thereto as are necessary or convenient and approved by such tribal representative. C, to provide for the payment of all fees, costs, and expenses incurred by or on behalf of the tribe in connection with the bond documents and the issuance of the bonds. And D, to take such additional action and execute and deliver such additional documents, certificates, consents, or instruments as are necessary or desirable to effectuate the purposes of this authorizing ordinance. And And be it further resolved that no undue influence has been or will be used to affect the execution of the bond documents and related documentation. And be it further resolved that upon approval of this authorizing ordinance and the execution and delivery of the bond documents by any tribal representative, the performance by the tribe of its obligations under the bond documents will be duly authorized by all necessary action of the tribe pursuant to the tribal constitution, ordinances, law, custom, and traditions of the tribe, and will not violate the tribal constitution or any tribal ordinance, law, customs, or traditions. And be it further resolved that the engagement of D.A. Davidson and Company as placement agent in connection with the placement of the bonds is hereby ratified, confirmed, and approved. And be it further resolved that the tribal council hereby authorizes a tribal representative to assist the placement agent and special tax council in preparation of the private placement memorandum and in connection with the sale and marketing of the bonds. And be it further resolved that the tribal representative is hereby authorized to execute a certificate providing that the private placement memorandum does not include any untrue statement of a material fact or omit to state a material fact required to be stated therein or necessary to make the statement therein in the light of the circumstances in which it was made, not misleading. And be it further resolved that in order to make the bonds enforceable obligations of the tribal council expressly waives sovereign immunity of the tribe as it applies to the bond documents according to the following provisions. The tribe hereby expressly, irrevocably grants a limited waiver of its sovereign immunity and any defense based thereon from any suit, action, or proceeding, or from any legal process, whether through service of notice, aid in attachment and aid of execution, or execution in the United States District Court for the District of South Dakota, Western Division, and to arbitration pursuant to subparagraph B below only to actions or claims arising from the related bond declaration or the bonds or transactions contemplated hereby and thereby, and shall not extend to any other claim, cause of suit, cause of action, suit, case, or controversy of nature. This limited waiver of the tribe's sovereign immunity is granted only to and for the benefit of the trustee and bondholders in their capacities as such, and shall not extend to any other person or entity. B, the tribe hereby submits and consents to the non-exclusive jurisdiction of the United States District Court for the District of South Dakota and all courts of appeal therefrom, for the limited purpose of any relevant action arising in whole or in part under the Constitution, laws, or treaties of the United States. If the relevant action does not arise in whole or in part under the Constitution, laws, or treaties of the United States, and if the United States District Court or District of South Dakota determines that it lacks jurisdiction over such relevant action, or if the parties mutually agree that the United States District Court for the District of South Dakota lacks jurisdiction over such relevant action, then any relevant action shall resolve by binding arbitration conducted in accordance with the commercial arbitration rules of the American Arbitration Association, and shall be held in Rapid City, South Dakota at a neutral location agreed to by the parties. The discovery rules of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure will apply to any arbitration proceedings brought under this paragraph. The costs and expenses of arbitration shall be advanced if and when required by the AAA, and each party shall share equally in such advances and the costs of arbitration. C, the tribe agrees not to assert the following claims or defenses in any such relevant action. 1, any claim or defense that the tribe is not subject to personal jurisdiction provided that the tribe is properly served. And 2, any claim or defense that the waiver beneficiaries must exhaust remedies in tribal court or other tribunal of the tribe, or that comity, deference, or abstention require dismissal of the action. The limited limited waiver of sovereign immunity extends to an action to enforce a judgment or arbitration award resulting from any relevant action against the tribe and to any action brought to compel arbitration. Such enforcement action may not be brought in any state court, but may be brought in any court of competent jurisdiction that has jurisdiction over the tribe to enforce its obligations under the bond documents. E. Any action brought by the waiver beneficiaries against the tribe pursuant to this limited waiver of sovereign immunity, the waiver beneficiaries shall have all available legal and equitable remedies, including the right to specific performance, money damages, and injunctive declaratory relief. F. The trustee may file an original counterpart or copy of this paragraph with any court in which the relevant action is brought pursuant to this limited waiver of sovereign immunity as written evidence of the consent of the tribe to its waiver of its right to trial by jury, and be it further resolved that the waivers and consents to jurisdiction contained in the bond documents are irrevocable. And be it further resolved that the pledge of the sales tax revenues to the payment of the bonds on a parity basis with the outstanding sales tax bonds and other terms and conditions of the bond documents are hereby authorized and approved, and that the tribe agrees to perform any and all actions necessary and required by the prior sales tax ordinance to issue the bonds on a parity basis with the outstanding sales tax bonds. And be it further resolved that security interest granted by the tribe in the pledged sales tax revenues shall attach, be effective immediately upon execution of the bond documents, and be perfected upon the filing of the required financing documents, all as provided in the bond documents. And be it further resolved that the security interest granted by the tribe in the pledged sales tax revenues shall attach and be effective immediately upon execution of the bond documents, and be perfected upon the filing of the required financing documents as provided in the bond documents. And be it further resolved that the tribal council affirms or will affirm the various representations and warranties set forth in the bond documents. And be it further resolved that none of the tribal constitution or the tribe's ordinances, laws, customs, and traditions, A, prohibit the tribe from issuing bonds, executing and delivering the bond documents, or undertaking any of the actions contemplated by this authorizing ordinance or the bond documents. B, create any obligation to submit these matters for further approval of or consent from any officer, body, agency, or instrumentality of the tribe, or any vote by members of the tribe. Or C, require any party to the bond documents under tribal law register, acquire a license, or to apply for eligibility requirements of any kind in order to perform under the terms of the bond documents. And be it further resolved that the uses of the proceeds of the bonds have been duly authorized by this authorizing ordinance, and such expenditures do not violate the tribal constitution or any tribal ordinances, laws, customs, and traditions. And be it further resolved that any ordinances, resolutions, declarations, laws, or other actions of the tribe, whether written or established by custom or tradition, that are in conflict with or inconsistent with the terms of this authorizing ordinance or any of the bond documents, are hereby to such extent declared inapplicable, and the authorizing ordinance shall supersede any prior ordinances or other actions of the tribe that are contrary to the actions authorized or contemplated herein or in any of the bond documents. And be it further resolved that the tribal council shall not adopt any ordinances or laws or approve or allow any other action of any nature that shall impair the contractual rights of any party to the bond documents. And be it further resolved that upon execution and delivery by the tribe, each bond document shall become legal, valid, and binding obligation of the tribe, enforceable in accordance with its terms. Motion to approve.
Wake up, she's done.
Give her a drink of water.
I'm gonna second the vote.
You got a second?
I'm gonna second the vote.
Councilwoman Virginia?
Just quick question, and then I believe maybe Mr. Roos can answer these questions regarding this particular bond. Yeah, I have questions regarding the bonds. So at this point, what is the total number of bonds that the OST tribe has with D.A.
They're
Davidson?
listed there in that.
So all of these right here, these,
They're present bonds, yes
Okay.
ma'am. Some of them are about to pay off and some will pay off this year.
okay, what is the total amount currently?
Not counting this bond, it's about $12 million.
Okay, 12 million is that we
Approximately.
currently
Yes
have
ma'am,
in
not
bonds.
counting this bond.
Okay, not to include it, so then would bump up to 15.6.
Yes ma'am, that does not include the nursing home bond, which is totally separate and has a total different repayment source. This is tribal debt here.
Right, correct. So in regards to this, there have been bonds taken out, I believe, in the past, for example, in 2014 for equipment for solid waste, correct?
It was 2007. for solid waste.
2007,
Yes ma'am.
and I believe there was something in 2014.
2014 was that bond that we talked about, that there was $1 million left over. That was for Wounded Knee, and then it went to Food Warehouse, and now you've allocated it for a district. That's part of the 2014.
14's
Yes,
bond,
ma'am.
so it got reallocated
Yes,
from
ma'am.
its original, what was originally intended.
Yes, ma'am.
So with that total debt, and we've been earmarking this debt in repayment with different sources of income,
One source, sales tax.
tax, the
Sales tax.
sales. So
Yes.
what percentage of our sales tax are being taken by the bonds?
It depends on how much sales tax you get in each year. We'll have a settlement on that October 1st. Of your 2019 sales tax revenue that has come in, all the bond debt service has been paid. And approximately a month ago, your treasurer and finance approved a $300,000 draw against your money that will come in October 1st. And depending upon the income that comes in from sales tax, you have an excess from $600,000 to $1 million each year. You've already received $300,000 that was just acquired about 30 days ago. October 1st, you'll receive the balance. And I was asked today to find out from the trustee bank what that balance will probably be October 1st, and I went out and spoke to your revenue officer. They're waiting for one check to come in yet from sales tax of the month of September, and so I can't give you that answer. By tomorrow, I should be able to tell you what the excess for 2019 will be. I'm estimating that the total is going to be $750,000 to $800,000 total for the year, of which you already have received $300,000. So each year after the debt service, you have approximately $750,000 to $1 million excess left over for your general fund.
So they don't hold it against us when equipment was, or bond was taken for equipment in 2007.
That bond has been paid off.
So that got paid off
Yes,
when?
ma'am. When?
Yeah,
That was a 7 or an 8-year bond, and so in 2007, if you extend that out to 2000, or 7 or 8 years, that's paid off. That's why this equipment that they're needing, it's shot, because it has a 7-year life, and they've used it since 2007. Some of the vehicles have 300,000-400,000 miles on them, and your director is spending a huge amount of money for repairs every month. And so that repair bill will go down substantially, right? Yeah,
Okay.
and so this particular bond, again, is a 7-year bond because the equipment has a life of 7 years.
okay.
Okay?
And then with that, it says, operational expenses, is it operational expenses for those two particular
No,
programs?
it's for your general fund. Some of that is legal expense. There was a budget that was approved. There's a certain amount for legal expense. I don't have it in front of me. Your treasurer submitted a budget for that $1 million extra. So when this bond settles, there's gonna be a certain amount of money go to solid waste, there'll be a certain amount of money go to water and sewer, and there'll be a certain amount of money that will go to your general fund.
And you don't have that breakout for us?
I can get it for you. It'd take me a little bit, but I can get on the computer and find it, or we can get Mason here and he can tell you exactly what it is.
Well, I'd like to see it in kind of in writing in regards to the budget and how it's being broken out.
Okay?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll get it. Any other questions?
No, that's it.
It'll take me just a few minutes to find it on the computer. Okay?
I have, Mr. Gonzalez has a question.
I made several strikeouts, but there's one more we should strike out. It's page 5. Go up to F. Down to the fourth line, put a period after immunity and strike out the rest of that sentence. Strike out as written evidence of the consent of the tribe to its waiver of the right to trial by jury. We don't want to go to a jury trial. We never have, and so we strike out everything that deals with the jury trial. Governments usually don't have trial by jury like the United States.
I'll accept that amendment.
So your motion, Councilwoman, your second, sorry. Okay, got a motion and a second. Motion by Councilwoman Whitehorse, second by Councilwoman Bearkiller. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Jackie Sears,
Yeah.
Vincent Tulips,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian,
Yeah.
Brian Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
Yes.
Philip Goodcrow, Randy Laisbach, Richard Greenwald, Robin Tapio,
Thirteen yes, 2 no, motion carried. That's everything for the finance and the finance. Okay, HHS committee.
Thank you, Chair. So number one, there's no, it was discussion, and I'm gonna turn it over to Craig for item number 1.
Hold on, what's Councilman Bill? We need to take care of that in-house attorney thing.
Are they here?
The ready? Yeah, we'll get it set up right now.
yeah, Lisa's here.
She's hiding in the back.
There's just one.
Yeah.
But she will cover, like, and all those other
Well, we can't stop just because we're supposed to. We still have to.
Maybe by the time the new council members will have everything ready to go together.
You said we only have one applicant?
We had 2 applicants and one had accepted another position. And then, so we have the one applicant that's gonna be called now. And you guys should all have her cover letter, her letter of intent, and your packages. And I was directed by law and order to just bring forth the one.
Can we just approve it if some reason we think it's removed?
Where can she start? Who is she?
She's on the phone, her name's Lauren.
Lauren, you're on speaker at the moment.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
So, Lisa, you guys are
This is the president of the Rolliston Tribe. I'm gonna give you, a few minutes to, I guess, say, to address the council and introduce yourself.
Should I start now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, council. My name is Lauren Bordeaux. I've applied for your in-house attorney position. I have been an attorney for about 20 years, always working on behalf of tribes or tribal organizations. I spent my first 12 years after law school working for the Association of Village Council Presidents. It's a tribal nonprofit organization based in Bethel, Alaska. It serves 56 primarily Yupik Eskimo villages. And it stands in the shoes of the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs and receives Indian Self-Determination Act 638 money to run all kinds of federal social service programs on behalf of the member tribes. It runs the Temporary Assistance to Needy Families Program, the Indian Child Welfare Act program, Housing Improvement Program, General Assistance Program, serves as an advocate on natural resource issues, a realty program, and whatever else the tribes need assistance with. After working there for 12 years, I spent 3.5 years working in Barrow, Alaska, at the top of the state for the North Slope Borough. They are a municipality consisting of 8 Inupiat Eskimo villages. And the borough actually has formed the municipality so it can tax all of the oil and gas infrastructure throughout the North Slope. And so that's how it primarily derives its revenue. And with that revenue, it supports a fire department, a police department, a health department, a planning department, search and rescue, and general municipal departments and services. I spent 3.5 years there and then came down south to New Mexico and have been here working for the Pueblo of Pewaukee, one of the 19 Pueblo tribes in New Mexico, for the last 3.5 years. I have worked both on the business side and on the tribal side. Business-wise, the tribe has a substantial resort and casino And it is partnered with Hilton for the hotel portion of the resort. It also has another separate casino, which was its first casino and hotel. And I basically advise the boards of the tribal corporations. There are gaming corporations and then non-gaming corporations. On the non-gaming side, the tribe has 2 gas stations, a travel center, some apartments that it rents to the public, an RV park, storage units, and then the business side leases out its land to a McDonald's, to a Taco Bell that's currently being constructed that I negotiated the lease for, and to other businesses that would like to move ahead with some kind of facility here on the Pueblo. Do you have any? Yeah, hi.
Okay, hold on. Any questions from tribal council? Councilwoman Whitehorse?
You reside in New Mexico, right?
Yeah. So Milwaukee is located about 15 minutes north of Santa Fe, New Mexico.
And you are aware that this is an in-house attorney position? And usually the in-house attorney positions are required to cover 2 committees, which would meet on 2 separate days of the week. I'm not sure which committees you would be covering.
I'm sorry, is it possible for somebody maybe closer to the speaker to repeat that?
Can she hear me now?
A little better.
Okay, you did apply for the in-house attorney position, and the in-house attorney does business normally for 2 of 6 of our committees. 2 committees which meet on separate days of the week, every week. So are you able to come to Pine Ridge twice a week?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I currently advise Milwaukee's Gaming Commission, its Alcohol Commission, which regulates alcohol throughout the Pueblo, and also its Tax Commission. And so I'm familiar with advising tribal commissions, but of course, yes, I would be there whenever you need me to be there.
Are you willing to relocate to the South Dakota area?
I am, absolutely. I've been to South Dakota several times, and I think it's great.
Councilwoman Berkeley?
Okay, as of today, I was looking at your biography and everything here, and I really commend you for all the education and the experience you have working with tribes. But my only issue or the question I had was, as of today, there's no suits and your license are all in good standing where you practice in that state, but you don't have no suits against you, right?
No, I don't. They're all in good standing, and I think I may have produced a certificate of good standing from one of the jurisdictions for you, but yes, I'm in good standing in both New Mexico and in Alaska, and I do not have any suits against me anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, tribal council? Ms. Steele?
How soon can she start?
I would need to give at least 2 weeks notice here, and then I would just need to, pack up my place here, move up and find a place there to live.
Cool.
Ms. Steele?
That was my question.
So as of right now, I'm gonna make a motion to go ahead and approve Lauren Bordeaux's contract with our legal department.
Got a motion to approve, second by Councilman Jumping Eagle. Councilwoman Whitehorse?
I think there needs to be a contract negotiation. I mean, she needs to know what funding we have available, and we don't normally pay relocation expenses, and so she needs to be made aware of all of that before.
I asked Lisa, and I think her office, she usually does that. So
Okay.
if we approve it, then she can negotiate that.
Okay.
And finalize it actually.
Do we need to approve an amount? Because XP can't go over 75,000.
My motion, like the other, attorneys, is to approve up to the $125,000.
We have budgeted $120,000.
$120,000 limit.
And you're authorizing XP to negotiate that, or to finalize that? Okay. So I got a motion, that's still your second, Councilman Jumping Eagle? Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Eden,
Yes.
Lydia Beerkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Jack Valentina Mardanian, Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
Yes.
Philip Fitzgerald,
No.
Randy Laisbed,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
Yes.
14 yes, unanimous, motion carried. Thank you, Tribal Council. Councilman Jumping Eagle, HHS, Hoka.
So I'm gonna, turn item number 1 over for Craig.
You're turning item over to who?
The number 1 item
Yeah.
says executive board, I'm gonna let Craig address that part.
Oh, yeah. Councilman Dillon.
We've been having some issues with when we send something to the executive board, that it gets kicked back. It doesn't come back immediately, and we find out weeks later that they wanted more information on these issues that we sent to them. And usually we do our due diligence in the meetings. We have the lawyer review it, everything that needs to go. And that's why we send it to the executive board, because usually it's time sensitive. And our concern is, why does everything get kicked back to us? You know, it's getting more prevalent every time. We had some specific issues, but they escape me now. I can't remember what they are, but. ITCB? What's that? ITCB? Yeah, and we decided on an individual that we wanted to settle on that, and then we were told that no, the executive board wanted to see somebody on there. But that had to do with the committee, and we made our decision on that. So my concern is what's the holdup? What's happening? Come on, executive board, I'm looking at you guys.
I don't think we've ever had, the only issue that we've ever sent back that came before the executive board was out of ED&D, and that was just with Mr. Livermore.
Our issue had to do with the Buffalo, what is it called? ITBC, Intertribal Buffalo. And we picked an individual who is currently the acting director for parks, and that got kicked back. to us, and we didn't know that, so we was without representation for quite a while. And so that's why I wanted to question what the problem is. What's the miscommunication between the committee and the executive board?
I don't believe there's any miscommunication. I believe we did take care of that specific one.
Apparently he didn't get notified by it because we didn't have any representation at the meetings.
When those items get completed through XB and the resolutions are done, this committee secretaries would send that information back out to the programs where they come from.
We were told that you guys didn't want that individual to sit on that commission, so you guys changed it, or wanted to change it. That's what they told us, you know.
Person,
Yeah, the recommendation went to the fifth member when we made our decision in committee, so. Well, hopefully we can get it worked out, and we don't have to have any more of these miscommunications and roadblocks. Okay? All right, thanks.
Okay, yeah, we'll follow up with that, but I know that we didn't, yeah, we never denied anybody. The only thing was just to re-review Mr. Livermont's contract. That's the only thing we've ever sent back. So, but we'll follow up with that. Councilman Apple.
Are we talking about Taylor the White Man's position?
Yes.
Okay, I have him on the phone here. Can we listen to him? Taylor, can you explain what's going on with the position you have? Hold on. Go ahead.
My position, I've been appointed to it, but there's no date on how long I'm to serve. And that's, I don't have a contract or anything. Just a motion was made at the council meeting, and that the ordinance suspending the board and appointing me, that's all. That's two different issues. We're talking about the Buffalo Commission.
Intertribal bison.
Intertribal bison? Yeah, we appointed him as a member. XB
passed the resolution to appoint him.
Then what happened?
I just have to turn in a tribal enrollment, and I'll be accepted onto the council. Okay, that's,
Okay, so see, that's been taken care of. All he's saying, that's it on his end. He just needed his tribal enrollment and whatever. It's not on the XB's.
that's not what came to the land committee. Okay, so it's ironed out. We're good.
Okay, number 2. Councilman Jopaligo.
No, that's the second time I came. I have my hand up, Judge.
Sorry, microphone, Mr. Gibbon.
What Mr. Dillon was trying to say very politely is that when we send something to XB, we expect it to be passed as is. We lost a good attorney out of that whole deal. I don't think we can get him back, but that is the second time that Mr. Little White Man, the first time it stopped, and it came back to land that XB wanted their own person on ITCB. So just to cut the conversation short, we appreciate you guys' diligence when you take care of regular business. Thank you.
Which we did. We didn't, like I said, it was just Mr. Livermont that we have ever sent back. So Councilman Jopaligo, next item, please.
So number 2 is resolution of the Tribal Council of the Gulf Sioux Tribe approving disenrollment for Taylor Brown Eyes. Whereas the Gulf Sioux Tribe adopted its constitution and bylaws by referendum vote on December 14, 1935, in accordance with Section 16 of the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, 25 U.S.C. subsection 5123, and under Article 3 of the Constitution, the Tribal Council is the governing body of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, and whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe's Constitution, enumerated powers, section 1J, authorizes the tribe to enact resolutions or ordinances not inconsistent with Article 2 of the Constitution concerning membership in the Oglala Sioux Tribe, and whereas OST member Taylor O. Brown Eye, DOB 11/19/2000, has requested disenrollment from the Oglala Sioux Tribe to enroll with three affiliated tribes, Mandan, Hidatsa, and the Rikarao Nation, and the House and Human Services Committee met on September 10, 2019, and recommended granting the request. Now therefore be resolved, the Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe hereby grants disenrollment of Taylor O. Brown Eyes from the Oglala Sioux Tribe's rolls and census as of this date. Motion.
Got a motion, second by Councilman Goodrow. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller, James Cross,
Yes.
Sonia Little Hawk Weston, oh sorry, she's excused, Jackie Sears,
Uh-huh.
Vincent Tulin, Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
No.
Valentina Mardanian,
Yeah.
Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
No.
Philip Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Randy Laisbeth,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
No.
Ten yes, 3 no, 2 not voting, motion carried. Next item, please.
So, number 3 is resolution of the Tribal Council of Oglala Sioux approving disenrollment for Adrian Parkhurst. Whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe adopted its constitution and bylaws by referendum vote on December 14, 1935, in accordance with section 16 of the Indian Regulation Act of 1934, 25 USC subsection 5123, and under Article 3 of the Constitution, the Tribal Council is the governing body of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe's Constitution, enumerated powers, section 1J, authorizes the tribe to enact resolutions or ordinances not inconsistent with Article 2 of the Constitution concerning membership in the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And whereas the OST member Adrian Parkhurst, DOB 12/3/96, has requested disenrollment from the Oglala Sioux Tribe to enroll with the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians, and the Health and Human Services Committee met on September 10, 2019, and recommended granting his request. Now, therefore, be resolved, the Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe hereby grants disenrollment of Adrian Parkhurst from the Oglala Sioux Tribe's rolls and census as of this date. Motion.
I got a motion, second by Councilman Laisbad. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller, James Cross,
Oh.
Jackie Sears,
Uh-huh.
Vincent Tulin,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
No.
Valentina Mardanian,
Yeah.
Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
No.
Philip Goodcrow,
Oh.
Randy Laisbeth,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
No.
Nine yes, 5 no, 1 not voting, motion carried. Next item.
Resolution of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe approving Nakina Mills as voting member of the Oglala Sioux Tribe Health and Human Services Committee. Whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe adopted its constitution by laws and referendum vote on December 14, 1935, in accordance with section 16 of the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, 25 USC subsection 5123, and under Article 3 of the Oglala Sioux Tribe Constitution, the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council is the governing body of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, and whereas Ms. Nakina Mills was elected as district representative of the Pioneers District in 2018-2020 Oglala Sioux Tribal elections, And whereas Pioneer District Council Representative Nikina Mills has expressed her desire to the Ogallala Sioux Tribe Health and Human Services Committee that she wishes to be approved as member of the OST Health and Human Services Committee. And whereas the OST Health and Human Service Committee did meet on the 10th day of September 2019 with a quorum present and did approve this resolution for presentation to the Ogallala Sioux Tribe for their approval. And whereas the membership of the council representatives on the committees of the Ogallala Sioux Tribe is approved by the Ogallala Sioux Tribal Council, now therefore be resolved that the Ogallala Sioux Tribal Council does approve, based upon the recommendation of the OST Health and Human Services Committee, the appointment of Ms. Nikina Mills, Pioneer District Councilperson, as voting member of the Ogallala Sioux Tribe Health and Human Services Committee. Motion.
I got a motion and a second by Councilman Gibbons. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller, James Cross,
Move.
Jackie Sears, Vincent Tulance,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian, Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
No.
Philip Goodcrow, Randy Laisbad,
No.
Richard Greenwald,
I suppose.
10 yes, 3 no, 1 not voting, motion carried. That's it for the regular HHS items. No regular for land, law and order, economic and business development, education. President's office, I do have one major thing to report to the tribal council. On the 21st, on Saturday the 21st, at 1:30, or correction, at 1:20, I received notification that our ambulance service, and some of you I have already briefed and updated about this, but at 1:20 I received notification that our ambulance service was only operating 3 ambulances. Medic 1 in Pine Ridge, Medic 3 in Oglala, and Medic 4 in Kyle. We were without a second ambulance in Pine Ridge and ambulance in the Eagle Nest district. I called the administrative officer, the chief of staff's office, and to get clarification on what the incident was. And I also made it a point of myself to report to the ambulance service and I reached out to, and I spoke with the dispatcher that was there. The dispatcher was not an ordinary dispatcher. The dispatcher was an EMT that was supposed to have been running on the ambulance. When I looked at the schedules on the wall, they have only one dispatcher that is on the normal schedule. All their other schedules, and every schedule that I read, said that all employees are subject to call back in the event of an emergency. So I notified the administrative officer, Mr. Ross, of the situation, and I asked him to call the director of such program and to assess the situation to see what the issue was. I also immediately notified members of the executive board of the situation. Mr. Ross did call back and said that the ambulance service was currently experiencing an employee shortage, and that nobody wanted to work because of the fee, because of the pay. But so I gave him a directive, and I gave him a directive to give to the director that the supervisors of each ambulance, as well as the director of the ambulance service, who is also a certified EMT, that they needed to suit up and report to duty, because I felt that that was unacceptable for us to be running only 3 out of 5 ambulances. If we had to send a patient out by ambulance, that would have knocked us down for 2 ambulances to cover this entire reservation. And if we would have had a mass casualty incident, we would not have been capable of handling those situations. Or if we were to have a fatality or a car wreck. The director was unable to come in at the time. She stated that she had some personal issues with her grandkids that she had to take care of and a babysitter. But you know, I just bring it here today, Tribal Council, because I feel that we need to take some action. We need, you know, this cannot go, you know, move. I mean, we can't continue like this because this is one program that should not fail. And I was prepared to sit there and dispatch for them or answer the phones for them or whatever they needed of me as the president. But you know, I also made it a point that if I was going to sit there and answer phones, that I wanted the supervisors and the director of that program to be at work. So the chief of staff's office did come in and they took over the situation and allowed me to return to I was supposed to be in Shakopee, or on my way to Shakopee. So they allowed me to continue my journey over there to meet with the chairman in regards to that Shakopee loan. However, when I did speak with the director, she also said that she was being prohibited from doing emergency hires by the Human Resources Department, so that she wasn't able to put anybody to work, and that they had people that were willing to come to work, but they were being held up by the HR process because of the background situations and all the formalities there. So I just, you know, I don't know what we can do as a council or as a governing body, but with something I feel needs to happen. Councilwoman Sears?
Can we hear from the chief of staff?
Yes.
So good evening. This was brought to my attention, as President Bearrunner had said, was on Saturday, that we were down to three ambulances for the reservation. We did do what we could at that point in time. We are currently working on this issue. As far as the emergency hires, I did speak with Dwayne this morning. The background checks, it seems to be a holdup with everything, not just with ambulance service, but with a lot of our programs. So the background checks can take, they should take 3 days, but sometimes it runs into a week or 2 weeks, and that is not a holdup with either the federal or the state. It's with our tribal courts. That is where it's being held up. I did get an email back. I asked Tyrell specifically. There were 4 dispatchers that Miss Watnett was trying to get on an emergency hire, and she gave us the list of those 4. We checked on them today, and I'm not sure when these background checks went in, but one was completed on the 17th and one was completed on the 20th. And so the other 2, they were looking into those 2. So that's kind of where we're at with that. I know that the wages are an issue, and we have talked to Annette about increasing those wages with the salary increases. A lot of these individuals make $7, almost $8, $7.89. That's what dispatchers are getting paid. But because there's a lot of underlying issues with that program itself, I have asked Annette to, in her 2020 budget, to increase that to the 1171. We're afraid that we won't have the money to do that, but here's the deal with that. The deal is that there's so few of these ambulance drivers. Majority of them come from Rapid City, and the majority of them are working overtime. So a lot of their budget is getting eaten up with overtime. So I believe there's 16 actual ambulance drivers across the reservation, and some of them, as Mr. President Bear Runner has let me know, some of them have come off like 70-hour weeks that they've been employed. So we are trying to address it. We are working on it. And we hoped to, Mr. Ross comes with a very prestigious background working with IHS, and so there have been some cutbacks with the 638 contract with the ambulance service, and we're trying to address them. So currently we have a meeting scheduled with the IHS, I'm not sure what her title is, but we're meeting with IHS to see if she can provide us with some answers, because when we visited with Aberdeen area regarding that 638, Annette brought up some good points, like we were losing them paying for our ambulances, and that's a huge cost for the ambulance service. And if they take away the GSA vehicles or our GSA status on those vehicles, it's going to cost the tribe more than that 638 contract to just have the ambulances available. So instead of paying $2,500, we'll be paying $25,000 per vehicle, and they charge for the miles that are accumulated on those vehicles. So there's a lot of different things going on there. I believe that Mr. Ross is getting a handle on it. Oh, he's here. I'm gonna give him an opportunity to speak on that.
Hey, good afternoon, Council, President Bear Runner. This is a tough situation that our ambulance service is in. Today I went to talk to the IHS CEO regarding where we're how are we supposed to pay for these vehicles if we're not allowed to do that GSA pricing, what Cindy was talking about. That's a lot of money. If we're gonna have to pay $25,000 a month on rental on those, that money's gonna run out in about 3 months for the whole year. And they're not gonna have any other money to go through that. So now, we had a call today with Dan Davis and Tina Russell, and we didn't get a good answer on that. All they're saying is that, tell us what you need and we'll try to help you, but there's no guarantee of money. And that's what IHS always says. So by moving forward with that, I'm trying to work within our programs that we have, trying to combine some of our resources for how we do our billing and our coding, because currently the ambulance service is contracting their coding, and it's costing like $75,000 a year. If we can use that, and I talked with Dolores today, and this is just a plan, we haven't got it enacted, but we're looking at it. If we can get our ENT coder and other coders we have to work with the ambulance service to do that, that's $75,000 or $70,000 that we can use to put back into the program. And we talked with Annette regarding that too, and I think that's something viable that we can do. But we have to, and I want to look at the numbers to see exactly how much that is, because that's more money, because IHS is probably not going to give us any money. So if we can pull that up and save that amount, we can put that amount back into the ambulance service to help with those salaries, but we're still gonna have the issue of those vehicles. So I talked with Troy Little today up at IHS, and he's going to contact GSA to see if it's possible for us to have our own contract with them to get those same rates that we were getting through the master health plan. I haven't heard back from him yet. I'm hoping to hear back from him this week. He didn't know how long that was going to take to run through the GSA system, but we've got that in motion. So I'm hoping that that's going to be another way for us to have funds to boost these salaries so we can retain these workers. Because like Cindy was stating, we're putting the patients in jeopardy by having someone's working 70 hours in 1 week and then they get 8 hours off and someone gets sick and don't show up. We're calling this person back into work to drive again, and that's not safe. But, we need to be able to, but that, to me, that's not an excuse, that's just a fact. So, we need to look at how we can retain those. And Annette has this, I don't have it with me, I left it on the truck, but she had a document that said back in 2017 that the committee approved of a raise of $5 per hour per the EMTs and the paramedics, which still has not been implemented because I don't think there's money to do that. But what we need to do is, what I'm looking at is we can get that quoting contract out of the way, we can do that within our own system, we can use that money to increase those wages. And I think that, that's a very viable plan. We're gonna continue looking at that to make sure that we can do that, but I'm pretty sure we can. But it's just having, we gotta get creative with our resources of how we work within our system, because every time we reach out for money from different entities, it's always no. There's no money. So, I think that, again, to reiterate that, I think that's a good option for us to try. So, to retain qualified people in these places.
Councilman Greenwald.
Chair, the last time we were addressing issues with the ambulances, and I think you said some are up to 300 and some thousand miles again already?
Yes.
The ambulances. So the last time we did that, we basically had to threaten IHS that we were gonna give the program back. By the end of that week, we were all in DC. By the end of that week, they had 5 new ambulances ordered for Pine Ridge, and they were delivered like a month or so later because they have to set them up. My understanding with the ambulances is it's not IHS, it's GSA has chosen not to do ambulances no more. That's my understanding of it. So when we were at the regional meeting consultations in Denver, some of these guys were here with us, is that Driving Hawk said that he would address that. He did offer to come down to Pine Ridge to visit with us, that they were working on the issues with our ambulance services. One, for being short, or not being paid enough, our ambulance issue. And so that was one of the issues that we brought up at the regional consultations. And I think we need to revisit that again and ask for Driving Hawk to come back here with a plan on addressing our shortages here. And we need to look at when we recontract that contract, that there's more money available for funding. One of the things that I got upset about, and Lydia and some of you guys know that when we sit in these meetings with the Great Plains travel chairman and stuff like that, they come and they said, we need you guys at DC. So I brought that up. So we're there at DC every year. I said, we tell them these stories, we tell them about our ambulance drivers working all those hours, and that is the liability. It's going to be one crash, and then we're going to be taking a bite. IHS will be paying out the ears for that lawsuit, because we've had one before. I lost one of my relatives who was a nurse, was killed in the ambulance, coming back from Rapid. But I think we need to address that issue with IHS, and it needs to be right away because, and maybe you could declare an emergency, Mr. President, and tell IHS, we have an emergency here. Either you need to come to the table and negotiate a new contract with us, or you're gonna take this program back. And these are our issues. And you could tell them that story of you having to come to work and dispatch, because you did not have enough dispatchers, and our employees are getting paid $7 an hour. You tell me one IHS employee that makes $7 an hour. You'll never find one. Because if IHS has to do that, the minimum they're gonna do is like a GS4, and that's gonna be at least, what is the GS4, 11, 12, $14 an hour or so? Yeah, at a minimum. So, I'd be willing to make that a motion to declare this an emergency. And IHS needs to come to the table now.
Okay, I got a motion and a second by Councilman Little White Man. Councilman Merdanian?
So all of this, when it comes to the budgeting and so forth, is when we do the recontracting. And so with the recontracting, this is the time and opportunity to start fighting for these funds. And with that, the justification and all of that needs to be outlined as to the funding and needed funding. And because this is emergency state, I know that HR in the past has helped with the background checks to expedite those particular employees. That's an action we can take, but with recommendations from the chief of staff that these particular, how many applications need to be expedited for background checks, then we can take that action as well. But the most important is looking at that funding and at the recontracting. And I believe that they already met for the recontracting period for the ambulance service. So our director, our program director of health admin should be able to give you some answers as to why is the funding in those, along with the director.
Yes, and during our conference today, that was brought up because every year when they do that meeting, they do put in, we need increases for salary, we need increases for this. Dolores has all the documentation that's asked for as long as she's been in that position. But according to what they said in the meeting today is that money is determined by them, how much we're gonna get. It doesn't matter what we request, it's a predetermined amount, and then they send it to her, and this is what you get to divide up among your programs.
Yeah, but they can work together with additional funds from the health admin programs. So if there's carryover over here, they see a program that's in need over here, they can work together to help offset that. But that hasn't been done yet.
Yes.
And so that's what these solutions need to be brought forward in regards to how we move these forward.
Yes, and then we discussed that today after the meeting today between Dolores and I. We've got some ideas on how to move forward with this to try to use that, because I've been explaining to the directors that are under me that we're all under this HHS umbrella for our programs. So if anybody has carryover, if there's that, we need to help the programs who don't have money, because we're all in this together. We can't just say, well, my program has all this extra money, so I need to send all my people to training to spend it, or I need to buy all this stuff just to spend it. We need to be able to put that out to all of the different programs, so we're trying to balance out, instead of just having some programs are in the negative and some are looking good at the end. So that's something that we're going to be working on, and we was actually looking at bringing that to committee next week.
So the other thing that, according to this, so when we go out and ask for additional dollars for all of our ambulance services, law enforcement, whatever, so IHS, when we all sit down at Aberdeen or wherever we're at, and we put categories of what's our top priorities for our region, for the Great Plains region, and we did that. So what did they do? They got Congress approved IHS for an additional $296 million. So they put it in the budget. Where did it all go? Brand new facilities in the south. None of it came to any of the priorities that we had set. Geraldine, you were there, remember we set the priorities for the Great Plains? Nothing went to that. It all went to new facilities down south. Not one penny of the $296 million was set into those priority areas. And I believe ambulance services was right up there in those priority areas. So, and I explained that to the Region 8 acting director, is that why do you want us to go to DC? You want us to fight for money and then you decide how you want to spend it, even though we asked all our tribes. I said there was 18 of our tribes in the Great Plains region, and we said this is what our priorities are. What do? You take the 290-some million and you put it in it. New facilities. I said, it's good, we need new facilities everywhere. But why are we doing all this stuff if you're just going to take it and do what you want with it anyways? Our ambulance service is still suffering here.
And that's kind of like the question I brought up, is why did we have to wait till a Saturday to realize that the program was failing? That we, as a governing body or as a committee, should have been notified right away that, I need help. It's because, had something bad really happened and, people were in dire need of help, we would have been sitting here discussing a whole different subject. Councilwoman Whitehorse and Councilwoman Bearkill.
Every year, ambulance service takes the carryover from Master Health. That's how it's always been. And, on their rolls, they have 31 medics. So having 3 on staff, there was no reason for that. They have 5 referral drivers who can also drive the ambulances. Somebody could have been there. They have a person who does the third-party billing on staff who gets paid as a biller. They can do that. Where is the director right now? Why is she not here? She should be answering these questions because it all comes down to management. It's not your job or your job to manage that program. That's her job. She should be explaining why with 31 medics on staff, she only had 3 people working and 1 EMT being a dispatcher. That's up to her. She should be explaining that to us. Yes, we did authorize pay increases, but again, it goes back to management. If you can't set up your schedule where some employees are not making 120 hours of overtime a payday, maybe you need some training on scheduling. Because that's what happens. That's what happens. A medic is paid $11 an hour. It doesn't seem like much, but when you count in 100 hours of overtime that they're scheduling them for, they make a pretty good wage. It all comes down to management. There's laws that cover our EMTs that say that if they're on call and there's a 5-hour span where they don't have a call, as long as we create a contract with them for sleep time, that can be counted as time off. But nobody takes that into consideration. There's a lot of different ways to save money in that program. And I realize there's a need for vehicles and maybe even a need for more employees, but it all comes down to management. And if she can't manage it, then maybe she shouldn't. I'm not trying to fire anybody. I just think that if you're going to call yourself a director of a program, you need to report as that director. It's not your responsibility to tell us what you're doing. It's her responsibility to tell us what she's doing to better that program. There's 31 medics on staff. 31.
Actually, there's 23.
Actually, there's 31 getting paid.
There's 31 getting paid?
Yes, medics.
That's That's not the information I got, so I'm gonna have to visit with her on that.
And right now, in background, there's only two temporary applications. That's it. So you can't blame HR for that either.
Yeah.
That director needs to be here to explain.
That's also the information she gave me was 23, and she said that people were trying to give her money, but they wouldn't give her money because we as a tribe take that money from her. I said, I don't think we would do that to a program as vital as the ambulance service. You know, and I did tell her that she needed to have her stuff and to be ready for council today. So I also don't know why she's not here. Councilwoman Berkeley?
Well, you know, I guess for me, I agree with what Cora's saying. But the other part of it too is this temporary. The temporary issue, we used to have that, and we never had problems with it. And when we were out to the DOJ KOLC negotiation, our director of HR advised them, it only takes 1 day for a background check. So if it only takes 1 day to do the federal, state, national, whatever, I think that we need to force the courts to make sure that those background checks that are turned in takes 1 day too. You know, we have to make all our programs able to do this, and there's so much red tape. And that's why I keep saying that we as council, I used to have information on everything on a program. We used to take those to DC. But when I came back in this last administration, everything is red tape. There's layer after layer people here. And who's actually doing the jobs, you know? So our directors, our AO is doing a lot of those jobs and doing the contracts and writing those grants and pulling this in and making determinations on where it goes and who gets it. It's not by this body or the committee. We hear nothing in those committees. And it's really sad that the president had to find the ambulance program the way it was on Saturday. And we're lucky that nothing happened, you know, to our people that are in need out there. You know, so we gotta really think about the director, you know, and fixing it. So she knows that those problems were there. Why wasn't it addressed? Why didn't you address them? How come it didn't go anywhere? And we found out the hard way like this. You know, so I think, like I was telling some of the council, on this background and this temporary, I think we need to put it back in there. In order for operation, in order for our programs to work. There's nothing wrong with temporary, never was. So I think we need to insert those back in there, and I'm saying that somewhere we gotta take out all these layers and layers of red tape before we as elected people find out what the problems are like today. You know, and then the justifications that the AOs have, you know. I mean, it's find a solution, you know. And if you're gonna do it, you need to do it without it coming like this. But in the meantime, you know, if our people are in dire need of emergency services, I don't think that I have no answers for a director or the AOs. You know, because that's what we're here for, our mandate is to work for those people out there. So today, you know, all this bringing up, I think we do need to change that HR manual. Allow temporaries to get back in there. And like she's saying about the finances, you need to break that down. And if there's 100 hours in overtime and 40 hours in regular time, something's wrong. And if we have to hire new people, I think somebody has to get out there and search for new people. There's a lot of people in need of jobs out there. So if Richard made a motion and it was second, yeah, he seconded it. If not, I'll second it.
Councilman Greenwald?
Chair, I had one thing I wanted to add on there and I forgot is, I would like to add into that resolution that Chuck and your administration be able to work with them, and Elliot Mulholland, who is our IHS specialist or healthcare specialist out of the DC office. You know, we pay him good money, and this guy is one of our gurus for the medical field. And I'd like him to take a look at their contract and help them with their recontracting. And that's to include our other medical programs up in Rapid City, the Native Women's, to be able to help them look at their recontracting and make sure we have everything in there so we can get the best bang for our buck. And he's right in the DC office, so he could start calling that headquarters office, say, hey, look, man, we're doing a declaration of emergency here. This A, B, he'll be able to get you A, B, C, and D, what you're looking for those. So I'd like to throw Elliot Mulholland in there, Hofstrass. Yeah. To add them in there to give them the opportunity to work with them.
Okay, so I got a motion by Councilman Greenwald, second by Councilman Little White Man. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please. The motion is to declare a state of emergency in regards to the OST ambulance service, also to include Elliot from Hofstrass, Dean and Walker. To assist with the recontracting of the
Just say all of our health administration programs.
Health administration programs.
And have it. They're all coming in.
Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Jackie Sears,
Uh-huh.
Vincent Tulin,
Yes.
Craig Dillon, Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian, Brian Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man, Chauncey Wilson,
No.
Philip Goodcrow, Randy Laisbeck,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
Yes.
$11 yes, 1 no, 3 not voting, motion carried.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Annette Red Owl. I'm from the Eagle Nest District. I've been the ambulance service director since April of 2016. I walked into a program that literally had nothing for funding. I worked on getting my billing clerks in place. They've done a really, really good job with generating revenue. Previous to my being the director, there was this talk of a $5 raise. So when I stepped in, that's one of the things that I worked on right away. There's a meeting minutes that says $5. The HHS committee approved a $5 raise. That was in 2017. That was a really good thing, but when I went to do my PANs and get them turned in, I received a call saying, oh, you skipped a step. You need to go back to the grants committee. So I did as I was directed. I went back to the grants committee. They told me I needed to do a wage comparison with the surrounding Indian ambulance services. So I did. I collected that information. I then went back and presented it to them. They didn't want to approve it. They told me I need it because my employees were moving 5 steps on the pay scale. I needed to come up with 5 things to put into their job description. So I did that. I went back, I researched, presented it again. They denied it. The funding was there. I generated enough money to cover raises for the $5 raise for everybody in my program. Now, because we're short-staffed and we only pay our EMTs $8.49 and our dispatchers $7.49, the money went away. So since that time, I have gone in front of HHS as many times as I could and asked them, can you guys please fund, give us some money. I need the help. And it was always the same answer. We have funding, but because the tribe took their cut of it, and the ambulance service never actually saw the full amount that we gave, we won't give the ambulance service any money. But that didn't stop me. I still went back. I even asked one of the previous CEOs, give me a phone number, give me an email. I want to get a hold of somebody, in Washington, because we need the money. This is a very important program. They wouldn't give it to me, but that didn't stop me. I still kept going to IHS, the CEO. However, I think there was like 4 different ones, and I always addressed my concerns. This program needs money. We need more staff. March of last year, I received a letter from GSA and somewhere in Washington. IHS backed out on the funding for our ambulances. I believe I shared that information with Mr. Greenwald the month before it was supposed to happen. That's a lot of funding that they took away for these ambulances. It's $2,500 a month for rent, and GSA charges us 0.626 per mile. Now, since they've been told that they cannot fly out patients as much as they did before, they're relying on us. So we do a lot of referrals each day, whether it be to Scotts Bluff or to Pine Ridge. So we're racking up the miles. We traded in 8 ambulances in May. So my guys are constantly going. The incident that happened this weekend, I had no control over a young man who decided he needed to be home to study because he wants to be a paramedic. He turned in his resignation, and also I had one employee that had surgery on his leg on Friday. So that's what left the program in that situation. We were up and running Sunday night at midnight. I had two ladies that cut their weekend short, gave up their family time to come in and make the ambulances be operational again. I had another young lady that gave up her day to come and be the dispatcher. Now, the issue with the dispatchers, I cannot find very many people that will come in and work for $7.49. We go through a lot of people, and this isn't something that is just happening. As far back as I could remember, the program has always had problems with dispatchers not wanting to stay in the job. So the problem I have is people can't, one thing is they can't come up with the $43.95. Another thing is, if I have one person who's in there temporary and 5 or 6 months later their situation changes and they have time to come back and be a dispatcher, HR is telling them, well, you need another $43.95 to do the background check. And I don't understand that, because I worked in HR for 8 years, and a background check anywhere else is good for a year. I had one community member here that she did her background check. She got busy, went back, and she asked them, why do I have to do
my background check. It's only been 2 months since I did it, and HR told her, wow, something could have happened with you within that 2 months. And it's, you know, you need to bring that money order back in. She's unemployed. She's a stay-at-home grandma, but she doesn't sleep at night. So she thought, you know, I'll come and be a dispatcher because I stay up all night. But she can't come up with the money now. The other issue I have is those that do have the money orders and they're ready to work, and I've called HR and I explained to Michelle, please, I need these people. Can you get them through as an emergency hire? And it's always, no, they have to go through the process. And depending on, I don't know, it could take anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. And I'm always told that it's because of our own tribal courts. That's what the holdup is. So those are the issues that I have in bringing in people. Either they don't have the money, or the background check takes too long, or they hear about how much we pay, $7.49. So I have been working diligently with everybody that I have on staff to make sure, you know, we have enough people, but I can't help that, you know, one of our EMTs died. There's other places that they can go work for more money. They don't have to stay here for 3 days in order to get, you know, a decent check to take home to take care of their families. And these are issues that have always been here. And I've done everything that I possibly can, talk to whoever I needed to. I have been advocating all the time for this program. And it's always, well, we don't have the money, or we'll look into it. So we do the best we can with what little resources we do have. So I have Chuck now as my AO, and since he started, we've been having good communication, which I appreciate. And I hope that he stays for a while, because he seems to be really working out, well, for me anyway. So that's where it's at. And I tried to come to a HHS committee meeting, but you guys were dealing with something, and so I guess I'm on the agenda for the next meeting.
Councilwoman Sears?
Yeah, I think we've been dealing with a lot of personnel issues, you know, especially with hiring. And we really need to look at our background process, because I think that's where we're failing our people that put in for jobs. The timeline is so long. It's a long process. By the time people are going to the background part, they get discouraged and they leave. And the money part, paying. When you're unemployed, that money's hard to come up with. So we got to look at that too. You know, I don't know, you know, giving our people a chance to work, we should at least let them borrow on that background check, you know. I mean, it's just a few dollars, and it's not like we're employing 100 a day. But I think that we need to really look at that. Or if they get hired, they pay that back, you know. But I really seriously think that we've been dealing with ambulance service for a long time. And I supported giving those raises, but somehow they're always being stopped. And we need to really deal with the funding part, Rich. You know, like you said, you know, DC is what we have to do. Keep going there and keep pounding on those doors. And we heard you, Annette. You know, a lot of times in these meetings, we've been hearing about keeping the staff there. And that's appalling to see people with those kind of skills getting that kind of a salary. That's unspeakable anywhere else.
And the thing about my staff too is we pay for none of their schooling. These young people, they take out these loans or get scholarships or whatever at Western Dakota Tech. So they do that all on their own. They do their own recertification every 2 years. If you're a paramedic, you have to have, I think it's like 80 hours of refresher between those two. The basic, it's 24 to 60 hours, and they do that all on their own. So I am very fortunate to have who I have to run this ambulance service, because they love it here. You know, it's sad to say, but we have a lot of traumatic things that happen here. And these people give of themselves to be here for our people, to take care of our people. And the other side of it is, you know, since I've been here, we have equipment, we have cardiac monitors, we have internet. Our paramedics are able to send cardiac strips to the doctor that they're going to. We have a Lucas device that does CPR for the EMTs on the patient. We have medication, we have life-sustaining medication that these paramedics carry. But when they get to IHS, either the doctor don't know what to do for them, or they don't want to do anything for them. And that's really heartbreaking. So on the other end of it, we got a really good program, we got good people. But when they take them to IHS, a majority of the time, those people die. So that's what I deal with all the time. And that was going to be part of my report for the HHS committee last week. So when there's another meeting, then I'll tell you guys more.
Councilman Tulans?
Okay, good evening. Back in the early 90s, when you used to work out there, you got a first responder that got to drive the ambulance along with the EMT. Is that rule changed, or does it have to be two EMTs?
It has to be two EMTs.
So there's first responders cannot drive the ambulance anymore?
And the thing with first responders is it's a national thing. So way back then, everything was, you could get state certified, you could get, you know, for both EMT basic, paramedic, the first responder. But the state, for whatever reason, moved to national. So you have to take a national test. The good thing about the national test is once you pass it, you can work anywhere nationwide. But passing the test, anybody can do it. You just have to be willing to take the time, read the book, study, not be afraid to, you know, touch other people. Anybody could pass it. You just have to have the dedication. We do have classes, fall and spring. We're getting ready to have another one in November out in Kyle. So we're preparing for that. So.
Councilman Greenwald?
Sure, you know, I just kind of been sitting back the last few months, and this council's kind of been letting IHS off the hook. As you can see, again, they're not here again. And I think it's like 4 council meetings in a row. They'll come in and sit here for a couple minutes, I gotta go, and they leave. And so I call it the Donald Trump effect. They don't have to answer to anybody to do what they want to do. That's just the way it is, and we have to live with it. Now, when I first came into council, maybe a couple of terms ago, this council wouldn't tolerate that crap ever. That CEO would be gone if they didn't get an answer to this committee, to this body. And so they need to be at the table. They need to be here at the monthly meetings. And we've been letting her get off the hook by not having them come here and do a report for us and answer these questions that we need answered. So I don't know what you're feeling, but I brought it up. I try not to bring up stuff like this because my wife works up there and I don't want her to be, because I don't talk to my wife about these kind of issues, but it seems like she catches the brunt of because of me. But we've been letting her off the hook. And I know you guys did a resolution to have that advertised and filled, but I haven't seen her in the last 4 meetings, to be honest with you. So I have questions about this and what can she do to help us move forward, but at this point, if she doesn't want to come, then we just go to DC on it again.
Right, and I mean, a lot of these issues that we're having with the local level as well as Aberdeen, I have Jennifer Hughes working on getting a meeting with Mr. Secretary Azar so that we could just go straight to the top rather than having to, you know, be pushed around. But I mean, and this is stuff like, I mean, and that even as the executive board, like I would appreciate to know when you need help, because all the times I've been to DC, I could have been, you know, I could have been stressing this, you know, that we were failing somewhere, that we needed this additional help. A lot of our time was just focused on public safety, you know. Now we got public safety out, high risk, and you know, now we have another sensitive program that is in critical, you know, that needs critical help. And so I mean, just things like this, even if you can't meet with, you know, your standing committee, then you can always come to the executive board. I mean, so that we, you know, I mean, and you know, to just come and find our program in that situation, especially that program, I mean, there's the things I could have imagined was, you know, if we just had something terrible happen, you know, who was gonna, you know, what was gonna happen, you know, who was gonna answer for that. And I mean, and that's why I stepped in at the time that I did, you know, I mean, and there was 4 calls in the times that I was there, but you know, I mean, it could have been a lot worse, you know, and that's why I asked for you as the supervisor to come to work, and those supervisor, as a director, and the supervisors of those ambulances to come to work, you know, I mean, and it's just, I just, you know, to me that's just unacceptable, you know, that, I mean, we just, I don't want to see that happen again. And I understand, you know, and that's where we also have to take the time to acknowledge those individuals that have stood by this service for years. You know, like I spoke with Mr. Atchison, you know, James Atchison has been there since, I don't know when, you know, for a very long time, and to get minimal pay, you know, but to still stay loyal to this program and to this tribe, you know, that deserves some credit. And, you know, and so, I mean, we need to take that time. Councilwoman Merdania?
Just a quick question, what is your budget shortfall?
Last year it was $857,000.
Alrighty, my motion is we're allocating from the bond, general, going into the general fund. And I think this program deserves some of those resources, and so my motion is that we allocate some of those resources from that general operating to go to the ambulance service, so we can get those staff hired, including HR working with the ambulance service to expedite those background checks. So that's my motion. Last year we can't, you know, the 800,000, but this year, I mean, to get the necessary staff on board and so forth, I think, you know, there should be some funds available to be able to allocate to the ambulance program. That's my motion.
Okay, got a motion by Councilwoman Merdania, second by Councilman Apple. Councilwoman Whitehorse, and then Councilman Wilson.
I think those funds are already allocated to different areas, but if we do that, we're just letting IHS off the hook again. I want to see if this director has a plan, because every year they get the carryover from the Master Health contract.
No, we
They
haven't.
use that.
Not since I've been the director and we've been generating revenue. The accountant actually has the last 5 years where we were, how much we were in the red. So we haven't, since I've been the director, we haven't received carryover from any program. And the main, well, when the biggest one that gave us all of our money was Jim Waters. And once he found out that we were generating money, he said, no, I'm not supporting the ambulance service anymore. So since I've been here for 3 years, well, It probably wasn't, but that's the way that it went. We haven't received carryover since I've been here.
Thank you,
Well,
Councilwoman
I
Whitehurst.
think that before we do anything else, we need to figure out where that carryover is going then. Because it always was set aside to go into ambulance service for salaries every year. And that's how they covered the rest of their year, because ambulance always fell short. That was one of the issues whenever those salary raises came forward. That's how they supplemented their program, was the carryover from the master health contract money. So I want to see a plan too. I want to see a plan on what your budget is and what you're doing with it. Because I understand, well, so many stories here, how you're short-staffed, how you don't have people for this, how you don't have people for that. And then when I ask questions from people who would know, they tell me something totally different. So I want to know what the truth is on this program. And I also want to know why it's taking your people, how long did you say for a background check? 90 days? When normally it takes 5, even with the tribal court. So 3 to 4 weeks, is that what it was? When it doesn't take 3 to 4 weeks for a regular background check. But I want to see a plan, because I don't see anything. And I'm sorry I'm not on HHS, but this weekend was unacceptable. And I understand that maybe you had issues where someone quit or whatever, but if that was at public safety, they would have pulled someone back to work. Just to cover, to make sure that, because it's an emergency area, we have to make sure that there's someone there to cover all the time. If someone in Wombly got in a car wreck, what would we have done? Or if someone in Potato Creek got in a car wreck, what would we have done?
We utilize the surrounding ambulance services, Caroca, Phillip, Bennett County.
But it's still our ambulance services.
I understand that.
To be prepared.
I understand that, and the staff situation, we already have people working anywhere from 72 to 100 hours.
I understand that
And
as
it's
well.
not fair
And
to bring them back in, and you can't rest out there for 8 hours.
Hold on, and then the councilwoman still has the floor. So when she requires a question from you, then you may answer it.
I understand that they work a lot of hours. I did payroll for ambulance service for 3 years. I know that there are weeks when some ambulance drivers have 160 hours. That is dangerous. And I don't know, when I was on HHS last administration, we asked for a plan. We never got one, but we asked for one. I think we need one. If you're very short-staffed, then maybe we need to keep advertising constantly to ensure that you have a pool whenever people do quit, so they can come on right away. If you don't have dispatchers, then let's bring somebody, I don't know, WIA or something, where you can train them and put them straight on from there. But we have to have a plan, because that is a very important part of our tribe. We have to ensure the safety of our people. And without a plan, how can we ensure their safety?
Councilman Wilson.
Okay, thank you. Cora kind of stole a lot of my thunder, what I was gonna say, but this council's kind of like a 3-year-old colt with an O-ring in. There's no woe in this thing. We're shooting from the hips, and maybe we better put a gag bit back in us here for a second and motion to table this, because we're and send it to HHS committee, have that plan, break down some finances before we start allocating monies that may or may not be already obligated for other areas, and come back with a plan and get some things advertised like Cora said, and make sure there's a pool at all times, and we'll figure this out the right way instead of shooting from the hip and running off at the bit again. So motion to table.
Second.
Got a motion to table by Councilman Wilson, second by Councilwoman Whitehorse. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please. We're tabling the motion by Councilwoman Merdanian, second by Councilman Apple, to allocate resources from the bonds to the ambulance service.
And have HHS bring it back to the next council within 30 days.
Within 30 days. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Sparkle Apple,
No.
Glenn Gibbon,
No.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Jackie Sears,
Piya.
Vincent Tula,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian,
Yeah.
Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
Yes.
Philip Kickrow,
Yes.
Randy Laisbeth,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
Yes.
Ten yes, 4 no, motion carried. I have Councilman Dillon, then Greenwald, then Jumping Eagle.
On your motion?
Yeah, we already passed that.
You know, in all fairness, I'm on HHS, and this has not been on any of our agendas. You know, ambulance service. And so, you know, I know it's a problem. I'm not trying to minimize it or anything. But when you come to the HHS meeting, can you please bring your third-party billing dollars that come in? And then can you tell us what % you're billing at? And then one of the main things I want to hear, and nobody talked about it, is you said patients not making it once they make it to the hospital. That's really pertinent information I think we need to look at and see what the problem is. She talked about the doctors not doing follow-up once they get them there, and to me that is wrong. And we need to know what's happening, where the breakdown is. So can you document some of that and bring it? And we got, in all fairness, guys, background is not HR's problem. The background checks are the courts out there problem. And, you know, I was at a law and order meeting one time when this lady come in and said, we need somebody who can actually spend their days doing background because we are busy and we do them as we can. And so maybe that's something we can fill as a slot out there so that individual can do background checks on the tribe side, because it is a bottleneck. There's nobody there that does them every day. So that's some stuff we can look at when you come to HHS, young lady. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Greenwald?
So Annette and Cindy, as you guys are working with Chuck on this, on your recontracting and with Elliot Mulholland, I think you need to really sit down and do a self-assessment, needs assessment, where your shortfalls are. I would like to know how many years the tribe has put up carryover money, even if it was $800,000 a year or whatever it was, because I think IHS owes that back to our tribe. I mean, we've sued IHS before for dropping the ball on things, and if our tribe is carrying a program of almost $1 million a year to a government program that should be providing those services, then I think they owe us that back. But like Craig and them said, is get ready for it in the next 30 days. And I know I did contact you last week or so about coming to committee, and I know you got on the agenda. But be ready for it. We need to know, I want to know how much our EMT should be making, our dispatcher, and if that requires another assessment of the local area. And I don't want you guys lowballing anything. Upstairs kind of has a tendency to lowball these guys and try to bring them in at maybe you might be 760 something now. They're going to try to tell you, oh, it's only 8 something now. Oh, I know it's higher than that. These guys should be getting paid higher than that. But when you do that, how is that going to affect your budget? What kind of a shortfall is that going to put on your budget? So when we do the recontracting, and Elliot will work with you guys on that, we have the proper numbers in there, so when we go after IHS, we get the dollars that we deserve and need, you know? So.
One last thing in closing, the people that are in the HHS committee, I would highly recommend that you look at the contract, the ambulance service part of the contract, because there's a lot of things in there that they have not helped with since I've been in here. It's down to the point where we buy pretty much everything on our own. Our drugs, our medications, our gloves, everything. The buildings, I mean, all of that, I will bring forth all of that because that contract, there's, even like the linens, they won't give us linens, and that's, when I worked in the program previously, we always got linens. They won't give us those. I mean, it's just.
So this is what we need in that report, and
Yep.
30 days in writing, so we know what to go, to headquarters with, so.
Okay.
Councilman Jumping Eagle?
So I'm gonna say, repeat what Craig said. I've sat on HHS committee as vice chair, and I've never seen an ambulance service come to the HHS committee meetings. So if there's no motion on the table right now, I'm gonna make a motion that they come weekly to give a report so we know what's going on here. That's my motion.
Got a motion, second by Councilman Tulan, for the ambulance service to report to the HHS committee weekly. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross,
Yes.
Jackie Sears,
Uh-huh.
Vincent Tulance,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Valentina Merdanian, Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Patsy Wilson,
Yes.
Philip Goodcrow, Randy Leisbeth,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald.
Yes.
Fourteen yes, one not voting, motion carried. Thank you. Councilman Cross?
Yes, Mr. Haynes, am I out there? President Barroner, and I'll get the loud in 5 minutes.
That's all, just 5 minutes? Okay.
Make sure, baby, keep track.
All right, Dave. You can bring them in.
Remember, Indian time says about half hour.
Secretary, did you get something ready?
Coming.
Oh my
Some
gosh,
fly
I just
swatters?
ate chips.
Some fly swatters? Got food, so some nice fly swatters.
Okay, sir, please, you use the microphone there, just turn it on and introduce yourself.
Hello, this is Stephen Haynes, and thank you for inviting us back.
You better get started, you only got 5 minutes.
Okay. I'd like to introduce the group that is with me is Sebastian Moss, who's a gaming expert who has worked with me for a dozen years. This is Casey. Casey's our project manager on our larger construction projects with Wayana Services. He's in Dallas. And Chris is our financial expert. He's got a contract with you all from the resolutions you passed. He's with Municipal Finance in Denver, and he will be financing the construction of the office building and help us with some of the C-stores that we'd like to build in the districts to help out with the micro gaming project.
Councilman Jumping Eagle.
So, they said you guys were out touring the districts today, right?
Yes, sir.
So what kind of potential did you see in Medicine Root? Did you tour any of the buildings, or?
We did.
In Kyle, yeah, sorry, in Kyle.
In Kyle, yes. We toured 5 or 6 different buildings in various districts, including the East Wind Casino. And there's, with a little bit of reconstruction, a little bit of paint. There's potential in all of them. We love the locations. The density was correct. Actually, honestly, more potential than I thought it would. The one interesting thing was that the additional services besides just putting in slot machines, like laundromats, like C-stores or gas stations, was for us is a no-brainer. It just adds a reason to come to the location beyond putting money in a slot machine, and helps out the community. So we're kind of excited about that. Chris and I were talking about it after the tour. We think there's 3 or 4 locations immediately that we can work on, and then in some of the larger, like in Kyle and in Pine Ridge, starting with a micro casino and using that cash flow to build something even grander than just a small C-store or something, made a lot of sense to us.
Councilman Greenwald?
So one of the issues as we start moving forward to the tribal and federal government, or the federal PIA and post office project, is those old buildings. And Garth, I think you sit online, I'm not sure who the chair is, but those 3 buildings, we need to look at 6:30 the demo, and that needs to happen as soon as possible. And I don't know if that's been done offline or any committee, because I haven't seen it at council yet. So the courthouse, the public safety building. So if we could get those to council right away, we could look at bidding those out or whatever to get the demo done, get those areas cleared up for the new project.
Yeah, the BAA said today or yesterday that there was a previous resolution that the council had passed, which wasn't sufficient to allow for the demolition to happen. So I think really just has to happen as a resolution. It has to adopt a more accurate resolution, and then they'll apply the funds to help demolish those facilities. Is that it for you, Councilman Greenwald? Anybody else? Councilman Gibbons?
Welcome, gentlemen. Well, Manderson, Wounded Knee. Did you see anything that caught your eye out there?
So, Garfield was nice enough to show us around the area, and the existing, I guess, grocery store that's there looks woefully insufficient to support that community, and there is some dirt available on either side that looked like it was, easily buildable. So what we'd like to do is work with the district to see, one, if you wanted to purchase that existing building and use it temporarily for raising some revenue through putting some slots in, while we can help you build a bigger facility. You need a gas station there, you need a C-store that's functional, and you need, in my personal opinion, just to clean up that area, fix the roads a little bit. We can help with all of that.
These observations, are they, I know you have a lot of experience in these matters, but do you go and do feasibility studies or anything like that?
We will do a feasibility study for the sizing of everything. But, we've been running around in Indian country since 1999, and, we've got a lot of experience that if you put up something new and pretty, even if it's small, it attracts capital and ideas and businesses all around it. When things are old and dilapidated, it's hard to get excited about it. And sometimes just paint and a refurb works. Other times you need to put up a $70 or $100 or $200,000 building. But a feasibility, we're talking about a 20-year piece of paper or loan from the USDA at 1%. So you're talking about interest payments in the $2,000 or $3,000 a month. It's not that much to be able to easily support, for a C-store or a couple of slot machines or a gas station to support those kinds of expenses.
Councilman Goodrow?
Thank you. Just want to thank you for being here, being on the reservation, and assessing each district. I just received a text from a district member and said, what about us? What they can do for us? But I think that's in the planning stages, and I'm sure that after assessing districts and whatnot, we may come back with a plan and so forth with the EDA committee.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having us. And we are going to give you a written proposal for each district and timing to see how long, what's available immediately and what's available in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. We know there's some weather that comes in here in a couple of months, and it's hard to move things around, so we may have to wait till the spring for a couple of them. But where there are existing buildings, we hope within 60 days to have all of those buildings actually operating. And by the way, we did go past and spoke with Stanley at Eastern Winds, and he was really super helpful and very nice. And we're going to have him a plan on how he can support what we're doing. And even if just a half-hour meeting, we're very comfortable that we'll be able to get everything done with him.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bearkiller and then Councilman Wilson.
I was just gonna welcome, the group that's here. And the online banking, did that start? Did you start that off? Is it? Where are we at?
That's not a project that we're involved with.
Oh, okay.
We're the mostly developers, so we're the office buildings and the casinos.
Councilman Wilson.
Well, thank you for coming. I think it's been long overdue. I don't know, we met in Rapid City like 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I guess a question that someone wanted to know was, could you tell, to kind of ease their mind, some of the other reservations and projects you've worked with prior to coming here?
Sure. You want to do your stuff first?
I worked with the Navajo and some utility infrastructure, electric grid, smart grid work. Done work with the Kemehueve tribe on an arena. Done some work with the Mohegans on a museum, one of their geological museums. There's several public works facilities, several facilities like that. So that's on the finance side, specifically with tribal projects.
On the gaming side, I've been licensed with 20 different tribes on the casinos going back to '99. So Osage, Comanche, Apache, Chickasaw, the Navajo, the upstate New York is the one next to the Mohegans. The Mohawks, the Mohawks. Pinoleville in California, 7 clans in Oklahoma, Potawatomi in Oklahoma. Southern California is Spotlight 29 is the name of the casino. I can't remember the name of the tribe. And we've done some work with the Pequots early on in Connecticut on a financing piece. And we're working with the Navajo. We're building them a casino right now in a place called Crown Point. And we did some housing with the this is Clear Lake tribe in Northern California, and the Luni tribe in upstate Washington. That's the top of my head. There are more they've done smaller projects with, but those are the bigger ones.
Is that everything, Councilman Wilson?
You bet. Thank you.
Councilman Apple.
To your gaming expert, in your assessment of the districts you visited, what potential did you see with our Class 2 gaming venture? The same thing I seen. I was a gaming commissioner for 16 years, and I see that in every district they want to go and play, but they can't. They don't have the ride to get to our Prairie Winds. So this Class 2, do you see it bringing more customers to our gaming facilities?
Majority of the customers will be the daily players that they used to play a slot machine for fun. So attracting small locations will provide more opportunities and more clients that will not drive 60 or 30 miles just to play $20 or $30 for fun.
Anything further, Tribal Council? Councilman Cross.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Haynes, and all your the gentlemen for coming down to the Pioneer Reservation and looking at all the districts, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future. And
it's been a long time, you know, since we've seen our team come like this and look at our districts and to try to create some economic development in our communities. And so I just want to say thank you to every one of you for being here, and also for Rich and Garth. And you know, we have a beautiful reservation, and we want the best for our people out there. And I know this is just a start, and we hope to expand on those too down the future, and to bring some pride and power of communities again to show, you know, that we as a tribe, you know, we do have our people in our heart. And so thank you guys again for being here, and I think that's it. President Barronner, there's nothing in closing.
Yeah, no, actually, Gary asked me to mention that we did some work while we were here the last couple of days. We started on the 638 program, and looks like there's a way to sort of help relocate some of the 638 recipients into this new tribal facility. In addition to the federal BIA agent, you know, some of the federal contracts that are going to enter into it. Had a conversation with the GSA this afternoon, who's going to be leading it, and obviously they want to have some space in the new facility. So we're trying to kind of corral all the different tenants that are going to be a part of this project. And I think it's really going to bring, like you said, it's going to bring some pride, and we'll build a facility that everyone's happy with.
We was looking at 10 stories.
I think the ladder's probably better. I don't know.
More roof that way.
Yeah.
Councilman Cross, I got to tell you, I've been in different parts of your reservation before. I've never toured the whole thing, and the natural beauty was really stunning. We were all kind of pleasantly surprised. I mean, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful day too, so nice to be driving around with no snow, but it was beautiful. And you know, from Kyle, you know, back here to Pine Ridge and all the way through, the construction, the new projects, the things that are going on is very heartening for us. I mean, you can tell there's a lot going on, and we're happy to be part of it. We're proud to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Was that everything that you had?
You don't see any more questions?
Any more questions from council? No?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so the next thing that I have, Councilman Greenwald.
Chair, I know you have some stuff that's on the items at the agenda, but we do have some guests that traveled in from Rapid City, and they take time aside to come and give us a report at our request. So the Great Plains Tribal Chairman's office is here, our IHS CEO is here, so if there's some way we could get them to up front and do their reports. So, and the Rapid City one's probably first, because it's getting dark out, it's getting late.
Right, I just have two more things that I just touched on that I'll get back before I conclude. So I was contacted by several of our membership, and I've asked Mr. Gunn to draft some things, and I would like to propose to the council an ordinance banning electronic smoking devices. There's been a high rate of death. There's been a high rate of lung damage that have been associated with these, and so some of the membership have been asking me to issue a ban. And I'll ask the secretary to read this ordinance, and I ask the council to, I guess, enact or to take action.
Ordinance of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, an unincorporated tribe. Ordinance of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council banning electronic smoking devices, ESDs, on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe adopted its constitution and bylaws by referendum vote on December 14, 1935, in accordance with Section 16 of the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, 25 U.S.C. subsection 5123, and under Article 3 of the Oglala Sioux Tribe Constitution, the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council is the governing body of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And whereas the Tribal Council has the authority under Article 4, Section 1W of the Tribal Constitution to adopt laws protecting and promoting the health and general welfare of the tribe and its members. And whereas the Tribal Council hereby finds the cultural, spiritual, and ceremonial use of traditional tobacco is an integral part of the traditional native life. And whereas American Indian people have the highest rate of commercial tobacco use in the United States. And whereas commercial tobacco is the leading cause of preventable death and disease, and American Indian people suffer serious health consequences, including heart disease and cancer. And whereas electronic smoking devices, ESDs, are not proven tobacco smoking cessation devices, but are alternative nicotine delivery devices that maintain or restore the addiction to nicotine and can addict a new generation to nicotine. And whereas ESD companies are marketing ESDs to the public and especially to the young adults as safe alternatives to the tobacco cigarette and an uneasy way to quit smoking tobacco cigarettes, and many companies are enticing young people and others to use ESDs with attractive flavors. And whereas the 2014 United States Surgeon General's report on the health food consequences of smoking states that the studies and assessments by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and the independent scientists have demonstrated enormous variabilities in design, operation, contents, and emissions of carcinogens, other toxicants, and nicotine from electronic smoking devices. The FDA's testing also suggests that quality control process used to manufacture these products are inconsistent or non-existent. To see summary results, laboratory analysis of electric cigarettes conducted by the FDA. And whereas electronic smoking devices produce an aerosol of the undetermined and potentially harmful substances, which may appear similar to smoke emitted by traditional tobacco products. And whereas the ESDs have not been approved as to safety and efficiency by the FDA, and their use may pose a health risk to persons exposed to the smoke, aerosol, or vapor because of the known irritant contained therein and other substances that may, upon evaluation by the FDA, be identified as potentially toxic to those inhaling the smoke, aerosol, or vapor. And whereas the 2016 United States General's report on e-cigarettes use among the young and young adults report that e-cigarettes are now the most commonly used form of tobacco by youth in the United States. More than 25% of students in the grades 6 through 12 and more than 33% of young adults have tried e-cigarettes. And 85% of e-cigarette users ages 12 to 17 have flavored products. And whereas the health of our people, including our youth, is of the utmost importance, and our tribe has always strived to take a leading role in addressing the health issues of our people. Now therefore be it ordained that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council hereby bans the manufacture, sale, distribution, purchase, possession, and use of electronic smoking devices, ESDs, on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And be it further ordained that for purposes of the ordinance, the term electronic smoking device, ESD, shall mean an electronic device that can be used to deliver nicotine or other substances to the person inhaling from the device, including but not limited to an electronic cigarette, electronic cigar, electronic cigarillo, electronic pipe, electronic hookah pipe, vape pen, hookah pen, mod, tank, or any other cartridge or other component of the device or related product, whether or not sold separately. And be it further ordained that the Oglala Sioux Tribe hereby amends Section 539 of the Oglala Sioux Tribe Criminal Offense Code as follows. A, it shall be unlawful to, 1, purchase, obtain, possess, smoke, chew, inhale, or ingest any product made from or with tobacco if under the age of 18 years. Or 2, sell to otherwise obtain for or arrange for the obtaining of tobacco or tobacco product for a person under the age of 18. Or to unknowingly permit such a person to operate a machine dispensing tobacco products in this place of business or in an area of a place of business over which he is charged with the management or operation. B, it shall be unlawful for any person to manufacture, sell, distribute, purchase, possess, or use electronic smoking devices, ESDs, on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. For purposes of this section, the term electronic smoking device, ESD, shall mean an electronic device that can be used to deliver nicotine or other substances to the person inhaling from the device, including but not limited to an electronic cigarette, an electronic cigar, electronic cigarillo, electronic pipe, hookah pipe, vape pen, hookah pen, mod, tank, or any cartridge or other component of the device or related product, whether or not sold separately. C, offenses under this section shall be punishable by a fine not to exceed $250 or by a term of imprisonment in the tribal jail not to exceed 3 months, or both. Be it further ordained that this ordinance shall take effect immediately, provided that no person shall be prosecuted for the manufacture, sale, distribution, purchase, possession, or use of electronic smoking devices in violation of Section 539 of the Criminal Offense Code, as amended with the first 30 days after the enactment of this ordinance by the Tribal Council. And be it further ordained that the Secretary of the Tribe shall cause this ordinance to be published for 3 consecutive weeks in one or more newspapers of general circulation on the reservation. Certification.
Councilman Langston.
Motion to table and send it back to law and order.
Councilman Gibbons.
Thank you, Chair. When we in law and order and dealing with ordinances, we like to send things back out to the district for the people input. I second that. Thank you.
Got a motion to table and a second by Councilman Laysbad and Councilman Gibbons. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Question.
Councilman Dillon.
Is there a time limit on this? Because this is a dangerous thing that's happening. I think we should put a 30-day, bring it back to 30 days one way or the other, because the youth are really suffering from this, and we have to be aware of that.
That's correct. That's why I brought it back. I brought it with all this information, and all the information and evidence that was given to me, I sent to the attorney to have this ready because of the essence of the problem. So whatever you want to impose on that. Councilman Laysbad.
Maybe that can be discussed in law and order, time frame, everything.
Councilwoman Berkeley.
If this tabling motion fails, and I hope it fails, because it's a dire problem out there. And we have to look at how we could protect our people from this, I guess, illness, this addiction. And all the stories you see, all the news you see, you know what it's creating. And when we have our younger children getting a hold of it, it is an emergency. So I'm going to make a motion to move it if the tabling fails, and I hope it fails.
Thank you, Councilwoman Berkeley. I agree with that. Councilwoman Sears.
I agree with Lydia because I've been watching the news and there's already 10 or 12 deaths now due to these vapings and e-cigarettes. And, I wish it was even pushed further, in the future for our casinos, because we have a lot of young people working there and that's the only jobs they can get. And they're suffering from lung disease now from secondhand smoke. So I hope that something like that comes forward, and also with bootlegging with those bottle waters. You know, there's got to be some tough laws here, and we need to look at those too, President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sears. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
No?
Glenn Gibbons,
Yes.
Lydia Bearkiller,
No.
James Cross, Jackie Sears,
Yeah.
Vincent Tulance,
No.
Craig Dillon,
No.
Cora Whitehorse,
No.
Ryan Jumping Eagle,
Yes.
Bo Little White Man,
Yes.
Chancey Wilson,
Yes.
Philip Goodcrow,
No.
Randy Laisbed,
Yes.
Richard Greenwald,
No.
Five yes, 9 no, motion failed. Got a motion to approve by Councilwoman Bearkiller. Second by Councilman Greenwald. Councilman Wilson.
I just got a comment. You know, it's funny how we pick and choose what we decide the districts to, ordinances, you know, you always say get the districts involved, get their opinion on ordinances. Well, then all of a sudden, we decide what we pick and choose what the districts are allowed to decide on their own and come put their input back. And this is just another case of not including the districts in a debatable ordinance, I guess. If you read it, it could be up to 3 months in jail for smoking a plastic cigarette. So I think that should have went to the districts first, but that's my opinion. But we pick and choose what the districts get to put their input in. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Gibbons.
Thank you, Chair. The reason I second that table is because some people are using these devices to quit smoking. They have become an aid. You can go left and right. And I know the seriousness of it, but you know, I don't think we take serious enough the meth and the bottles. We're not taking action on that. And when we deal with stuff in law and order, that's our balancing piece. The district, take it back to our districts. We got several ordinances pending that are to go back to our districts for their input. I'll be the last one to shove anything down anybody's throat. But our people out there in the districts, they've got a say in this. They've got children. Are they going to buy them devices for their children? Have they? How many have quit smoking since using these devices? I think it's a people's choice here, guys. And that's what law and order does. Is we get it out there and let the people decide.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Garfield Apple,
Yes.
Glenn Gibbons,
No.
Lydia Bearkiller,
Yes.
James Cross, Jackie Sears,
Oh, no.
Vincent Tulance,
Yes.
Craig Dillon,
Yes.
Cora Whitehorse,
Yes.
Ryan Jumping Eagle,
No.
Bo Little White Man, Chancey Wilson,
No.
Philip Goodcrow,
Oh,
Randy Laisbed,
No.
Richard Greenwald,
Yes.
Nine yes, 4 no, 1 not voting. Thank you, Tribal Council. Councilwoman Bearkiller.
If you read the end, be it resolved, the secretary has 30 days to put this out there to the public. And I hope you put it out there right away in the paper. And as far as our businesses, you know, they have 30 days to clean it up. And you know, they're saying we don't do too much for alcohol and meth and all that, but this body, you know, pushed ordinances out there to deal with hairspray, rubbing alcohol, all of that. You know, we put it out there because they're using that to mix stuff out there. And up to this day, you know, I've never heard any complaints or reports on it. Or if they did sell it, they were locked up. If they needed the hairspray or whatever, you know. So there's ways on how we're not shoving nothing down anybody's throat, but to look at the effect and seriousness of introducing this law. So, and the people are aware, they'll be aware, that it'll be out there for them to see and read. But I just want to share that.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bearkiller. Tribal Council, I have one more that I'm bringing to you is defining the absence of the president. In the past, we ran into some problems where I felt the vice president overstepped her boundaries in trying to call administrative leave when I had full control of the situation. There was a lot of other factors that I take into place when for one, I really don't like to call administrative leave if you have not already figured that out. But I like to factor in to make sure that we have our businesses done and to look at the business that's going to be affected if I call administrative leave. And you know, and so she went ahead and sent a memo to the Human Resources Director authorizing administrative leave while I was sitting in my office. So I have employees that are just fleeing out of the building, and what I was trying to establish was to ensure that our employees were paid, that payroll was out, that all the burial assistance was prepared and ready, so that those people that had to bury loved ones during that time had the assistance that they needed, that any assistance that needed to go out for medical was done, and everybody was just already leaving out the door. We had some employees that were very knowledgeable in the Constitution that reached out to my office to see if that was, you know, something that I did, and I told them no, so they stayed. And then after all the business was completed and I pushed out, you know, ensured that the FAO department had all the assistance out to the people and to the districts, then I called administrative leave. And that gap there within those couple hours from when those employees left to the vice president's order, then to my order, they were very upset because they lost out on that time because they listened, you know, and to the vice president. And it was put out by HR, you know, and so in order to conflict, I was looking back at our Constitution, you know, and yes, it was written in 1934, and you know, since then, I mean, that also happened a second time while I was in Washington, and she used that as me being absent, being in Washington, conducting business of the tribe, as me being absent. When, you know, my staff was in the office, I was in contact with them, phone lines were open, you know, there was a plan of action, and you know, and for me to be able to fully administrate the tribe. You know, right now the President of the United States has the capabilities of, you know, running this country from around the world. You know, and when I'm off on business, you know, I feel that I can still adequately administrate the tribe. You know, because we have the technology available today in 2019 than we did in 1934, where a traveling president would be deemed absent and unable to contact, you know, when issues may arise. But today with cell phones and our technology, I feel that there needed to be a change and there needed to be a clear definition defining the absence of the president so that we avoid those problems in the future. So I met with Ms. Hughes the last time I was out in DC with Hofstrasse, and I asked them for their input. I mean, I feel that unless I'm dead or on life support or a prisoner of war or something, that, you know, that should define my absence, that I would not be able to properly administrate the tribe. But when I'm in Washington or off, you know, with the Great Plains or, you know, wherever my meetings may be throughout the country, that I can still effectively administrate this tribe. So I asked Hofstrasse if they would draft, working with Ms. Bear Eagle, and we put Mr. Gunn on here to give us a legal definition to define the absence of the president today in 2019. And so I'll ask the attorney to read what these three legal departments have drafted.
I guess just before reading it, if it's all right with you, Mr. President, I'll just say that there are some terms in the Constitution that aren't defined, and the council has the inherent authority to provide definitions as long as they're reasonable and consistent with the will of the people. One example in Article 8 on removal of council representatives is the phrase crime of dishonesty. And that article does provide for forfeiture of office by any council member who's convicted of a felony or a crime involving dishonesty. And the Constitution doesn't define crime involving dishonesty, but the council has, by ordinance, given a definition to that term. And that's sometimes necessary. The phrase "in the absence of the president" is another one of those phrases that's not defined. And this is not an ordinance that's drafted in response just to the issues of the current administration, but it's designed to deal with any issues that may arise in any future administration of the tribe where the president is called to other business but is still capable of performing certain functions. So it's an ordinance of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council defining the phrase "in the absence of the president" as used in Article 13, Section 2 of the Oglala Sioux Tribe Constitution. Whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe adopted its constitution and bylaws by referendum vote on December 14, 1935, in accordance with Section 16 of the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, 25 U.S.C. Section 5123, and under Article 3 of the Constitution, the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council is the governing body of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. And whereas Article 4, Section 1W of the Tribal Constitution vests the Tribal Council with the authority to enact laws protecting and promoting the general welfare of the tribe and its members. And whereas Article 4, Section 1S of the Tribal Constitution vests the Tribal Council with the authority to adopt laws regulating the procedure of the Tribal Council and the Executive Committee. And whereas Article 3, Section 6 of the Tribal Constitution provides that the President and Vice President of the tribe are officers of the Tribal Council. And whereas Article 13, Section 1 of the Tribal Constitution provides that it shall be the duty of the President to preside over all meetings of the Tribal Council and to carry out all orders of the Tribal Council unless prevented by just causes. The President, with the assistance of subordinate Executive Committee members, shall also exercise powers delegated by the Tribal President to the Tribal President by the Tribal Council. And whereas Article 13, Section 2 of the Tribal Constitution provides that the Vice President shall perform the duties and execute the powers of the President in the absence of the President, and shall assume the presidency in the event of a vacancy in the office. And whereas the Tribal Constitution does not define the term "in the absence of the President" as used in Article 13, Section 2 of the Tribal Constitution, and whereas the Tribal Council has the inherent authority to define terms and phrases that are used but not defined in the Constitution, and to adopt procedural rules to reasonably implement provisions in the Tribal Constitution, provided that its definitions and procedural rules may not contravene the clear intent of the Oglala Oyate in adopting the Tribal Constitution and amendments thereto. And whereas the Tribal Council has exercised these authorities in the past, and whereas the Tribal Council enacts this ordinance to define the phrase "in the absence of the President" as used in Article 13, Section 2 of the Tribal Constitution, and to establish reasonable procedural rules to determine when the President is absent from office with the intent to provide clear guidance to the members and officers of the Tribal Council and to the Oglala Oyate on the circumstances in which the Vice President is authorized to perform the duties and execute the powers of the President. Now, therefore be it ordained that the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council hereby enacts this ordinance to define the phrase "in the absence of the President" as used in Article 13, Section 2 of the Oglala Sioux Tribe Constitution, and to establish reasonable procedural rules to determine when the president is absent from office as follows. 1, the president shall be deemed absent and the vice president shall have the authority to perform the duties and execute the powers of the president only when the president is unable to perform the duties and execute the powers of the president. 2, to the extent possible, the president shall inform the vice president in writing whenever the president is or will be unable to perform some or all of the duties of the president, or unable to execute some or all of the duties of the president. And during such period of inability, the president shall authorize the vice president to perform those duties and execute those powers on a temporary basis. The president may at any time inform the vice president in writing that the president is able to resume performing the duties and executing the powers of the president, and the temporary authority vested in the vice president shall terminate. 3, in the absence of a written declaration by the president, as described in the preceding section, if any member or officer of the tribal council determines that the president is unable to perform some or all of the duties of the president, or unable to execute some or all of the powers of the president, such member or officer of the tribal council shall inform the executive committee or a standing committee of the tribal council with simultaneous written notice to the president. And if the executive committee or a standing committee concurs by majority vote in the determination, the vice president shall be authorized on a temporary basis to perform those duties and execute those powers the president is unable to perform. The president may at any time inform the vice president in writing with a copy to the executive committee or standing committee that the president is able to perform or resume performing the duties and executing the powers of the president, and the temporary authority vested in the vice president shall terminate. And be it further ordained that this ordinance shall take effect immediately.
Motion.
I got a motion by Councilwoman Bergkiller, second by Councilman Apple. Councilwoman Sears and Councilman Goodcrow.
Excuse me. I have a question on the emergency part, and I know that it was probably discussed on number 3. In the event that the president cannot notify anybody, maybe he can't get self-service, electronics and everything. So that's probably taken care of in that section with the executive board meeting and...
That's the intent, and God forbid that a president of the tribe were involved in some accident or some circumstance where he or she could not inform the vice president of his absence, then this would allow any one of you or any officer on the executive committee to say, I think something's wrong and I think we need to authorize the vice president to act.
Okay, another one too. There's times when the president wasn't around to run a council meeting. My question is the vice president allowed to do that? Because this administration, it hasn't happened yet. We just reschedule our council meetings. So is that gonna affect that too? If the president isn't gonna be here like he says he's gonna be in DC or somewhere representing the tribe, but we still have council meetings that need to continue and we have to put those off. Is that covered here too?
Well, there may be a circumstance where the president is away from the reservation and unable to chair a council meeting in person. And I think the tradition has been that the chair of the council meeting must be here physically in person. I'm not aware of the council having a remote chair.
No, I'm saying that the vice president still steps into that position.
And that would be a situation where if the president were physically unable to be here and chair, then the vice chair could chair that meeting, even though the president were somewhere else executing some of the functions of the president, for example, meeting with the South Dakota congressional delegation or carrying out other functions. So in that situation, he could say, I'm going to be gone. I want you to chair the meeting, but I'm going to perform the other functions that I am still capable of performing, but you chair that meeting.
I know there's situations where they both had to be gone and we did have to reschedule, so I just want to make sure that the vice president still has that authority to run a meeting.
Councilwoman Bearkiller?
I guess I only have one comment is, under the, if you look at the Constitution and bylaws, and you read bylaws, this ordinance is defined in there. I mean, it's spelled out. The role of the president and the vice, secretary, treasurer, all that's in there, what their duties are, and what they should be doing for the tribe. So, I don't see no, no problem with this. And I know that several times the vice president gave us the letter before council meeting that she was gonna be gone. And, you know, when we talk about day to day, there should be good communication between the president, the vice, the secretary, and the treasurer. That one of them, the executive officers should always be here. And that's the day-to-day operation stuff. And that's good that we do have that from the secretary and the treasurer and the fifth member that sometimes is here. But most of the time it's the treasurer and the secretary when we're all on travel. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's just the executive board, but, so I don't see nothing like wrong with the ordinance. That's just doing a clear definition of those roles. But if council wants to move it further,
Right, and
we
that's
could
all,
put it on a ballot.
that's all I'm asking for. I mean, and that's all I feel that needs to be done. Councilwoman Bearkiller, just because there was no clear definition and rather of trying to do a little power struggle and do write-ups and argue with one another, I just figured we might as well just implement a clear definition so that that problem does not continue for this administration or the administrations yet to come.
Motion to approve.
I got a motion by Councilman Bearkiller, seconded by Councilman Apple. Councilman Goodcrow, then Councilman Apple, and then we'll come around the horn.
Okay, thank you. I know you're defining through the procedure rules with this ordinance that you developed, Steve. But any time that you want to change, would that take a secretarial election in Article 13, Section 2? I mean, that's just a question, yes or no?
I don't think you need a secretarial election to pass this ordinance because you're not changing the words of the Constitution. And the Vice President still has the authority to perform the duties of the President in the absence of the President. You're just defining what that phrase means.
Okay, the second one is, in this ordinance back in 98, 2000, Chairman Steele was president, and there was a treasurer at that time. I won't mention any names, but he was removed from his position as treasurer, and so the president's office had a standard operating procedure which was handed down to each time a president was elected, and that president would utilize that standard operating procedure that was passed on to every election, whoever's elected. But it was taken to court, and the judge ruled in favor of the person who used to be the treasurer, and threw out the standard operating procedures, which I think would have defined a lot of what's in here. And I don't know if that still could come back or not. That's something that, I wanted to bring up.
Thank you, Councilman Goodcrow. Councilman Apple?
Steve, a question. If they were both gone, President and Vice President, we didn't know where they were, can one of the other executive board members run the meeting? I know we didn't adopt Robert's Rules of Order, but it's the way my district ran meetings for 40 years now. And we had Robert's Rules of Order, and that's what they said. They said an officer can run the meeting. So I'm just asking you,
What you have is it does say in the Constitution itself that it's the duty of the president to preside over the meetings of the tribal council. And then it says that the vice president can perform those duties in the absence. So it does seem to me that it would be the president or the vice president in terms of chairing a meeting of the council itself. However, you do have the authority to establish the procedures of the council. And I'm not aware of any ordinance that the council has ever adopted authorizing anyone other than the president or vice president to chair a meeting of the tribal council.
I know there's precedents in the United States Constitution where if they were both killed or, something happened, that another branch of the government or a certain officer would step in to fulfill those duties and to continue to ensure that the governing body continues to function. And I think that's more or less what you're asking. And that's probably something I could work on too, to bring some definitions back. But I felt like this was kind of imminent and needed to be something done right away. Councilman Wilson?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of feel we're violating parts of the Constitution here, just a hair. And I think there's some breakdown of communication and maybe some personal issues going on, and I don't know. I mean, we've gone through 4 different presidents in 8 years here, and 2 vice presidents. I don't know, this comes on council floor, an ordinance again, second time in a row without debate from the council or input from the tribe. I'm going to motion to table and send this back to Law and Order for some more clarity, I guess. Because I just feel I feel that we've gone through 4 presidents in 8 years and 2 different vice presidents, and it may be just a communication breakdown this administration. Thank you.
Thank you. I got a motion to table by Councilman Wilson, second by Councilman Laysback. Councilman Gibbons.
Thank you, Chairman. Law and Order, our committee, that's our job. So look at these ordinances that come about and to research them and to get out and ask the people what they want to do. I've had so many calls about constitutional reform. They need to change, they want to change, it's about time, long overdue. And because you can't talk to the vice president, now we're gonna change something? That's not working for me, President. I'm third in that table motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call this into executive session at 19:28.